Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm here to call the Santa Fe County Planning Commission meeting to order on Thursday, February 16th, 2023. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Thank you. Okay, can I get a roll call, please?
Carla Gonzalez,
Present.
JJ Gonzalez, Eric Obo,
Present.
Andy Perard,
Present.
Maria Serna, Carl Trujillo, Steve Krenz. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, Jose, approval of agenda. Do we have any amendments or table or withdrawn items?
Mr. Chair, the only change on the agenda is under the consent calendar, the final order is tabled.
Thank you, Jose. Okay, approval of the minutes of January 24th, 2023. Do I have any discussion or a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll set.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, thank you. Let's see here, consent. Final order, okay, that was tabled. New business, case number 22-5220, Miguel Hernandez variance. Mr. Bustos, please come forward, make your presentation.
Miguel Hernandez, applicant, Travis Dixon, agent, requests approval of a variance from the setback requirements illustrated in SLDC 9.8. The 1.25 acre property is zoned as residential estate within the La Cienega and La Cieneguilla Community District overlay. The setback within the LCL CCD Resi zoning district is 25 feet from the front of the property and 50 feet from the side and rear of the property line. The site is located at 6 South Estrellas Road within Township 16, Range 8, Section 27. The applicant constructed a detached garage and garage addition to the existing house without obtaining a development permit. A complaint was received on September 19th, 2022. A notice of violation was issued on September 20th, 2022. The two structures did not meet the setback requirements of the SLDC. On November 28th, 2022, the applicant submitted a variance request to allow both a detached garage and attached garage addition to be encroaching within the required setbacks of the SLDC. Table 9-8-7, dimensional standards, LCL CCD Resi, states the front of the building shall be set back 25 feet from the property line, and the rear and sides of the building shall be set back a minimum of 50 feet from the property line. As indicated on the site plan, the front of the property line is South Estrellas Road. As this road lies within the subject property, the front setback of 25 feet is met. The garage addition is 10 feet from the side property line. The 2,025 square foot detached garage that was constructed, which is labeled as carport on the site plan, is 21 feet from the side property line. The applicant's property was originally a 2.5 acre parcel, which was then divided through a small lot family transfer plat, creating two 1.25 acre parcels. This survey was recorded December 4th, 2015. At the time of recordation, the residence was existing on the property. The applicants have addressed the variance criteria as follows, and staff has responded. Recommendation, the request for a setback variance does not meet the standards of the SLDC section 9.8. Staff recommends denial of the variance request. If the Planning Commission finds the variance criteria has been met and recommends approval of the variance, staff recommends the following condition be imposed. And Mr. Chair, can I enter the following conditions into the record?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. And I now stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bustos. Does the commission have any questions of staff? Carl? Just went out.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bustos, for the, I read through the material, and so just so I get a better understanding, when they did the Sustainable Land Development Code and they went to the different communities, they established these minimal lot sizes and then also the perimeter as far as the setbacks. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Trujillo, that is correct. I believe it was our planning department that, met with the community, and it was, essentially the community that showed up to these meetings that, created the standards for these overlay districts.
Sure, and I actually remember that because, I live down in the Nambe Valley, and that got zoned as a traditional zoning. But at the time, I was also elected, and I went to local communities when the staff was doing this, and they sent out notices. I remember Mr. Griego going out there and doing a wholehearted job in doing so. The sad thing of it is that not very many people showed up a lot of times, and I know they made an earnest attempt to really try and get people there. And ultimately, what happens is that there's a few people making the decisions for many people, and there's a lot of unintended consequences sometimes that comes with that. And I know the county did they did the best they could to try and abide and go out and reach out to the communities. And so I like I said, I went to many of these different meetings in the local community, and I was saddened by the participation. And so I guess the question I have is on lots that, if I look over at this development, there's a lot of lots that are at 1.285 acres, so they're already they must have been subdivided before the ordinance went in. And so what could be done for lots that, because of the way they were subdivided and the way that the geometry of the lot, that it basically makes a lot unbuildable to build on? What can a potential owner do?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Trujillo, I know there is a section in the code that would be for a lot that is undeveloped, that, there is an exception. I think that the administrator could approve, lessened setback. If someone had just purchased the property and was coming in to, develop a new home, and, like you had mentioned, due to the constraints or the layout of the lot, they're unable to meet, such as like a 50-foot setback. In those cases, I think we can work with applicants. So I have seen that work out in the past.
Sure. And this isn't really a question for the staff, it's just a comment, is that I often wonder, what happens with disclosure with realtors when they sell a piece of property like this, that's an acre and a quarter, it's got a weird geometry, and with the code here, it's actually not that feasible to build. I just don't know what disclosures have to be met, or if they even know. It's kind of an interesting point. But anyways, thank you for your answers. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other staff?
Mr. Chair?
JJ. Yes. Ray, go first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for staff with regards to the original structure where there is an attached garage that had been built. What were the setbacks from the lot lines of the original structure?
I believe, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rea, I believe looking at the site plan, about roughly anywhere from about 26 to about 32 feet prior to the addition being built.
So the original structure was it grandfathered then? in terms of being constructed prior to the SLDC setback requirements?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Cerna, yeah, that was correct. I believe when they did the creation of the lot, I believe the home was already existing, so it would be grandfathered in.
Thank you.
Thank you. JJ?
Yeah. Gabe, yeah, I'm looking at the exhibit number 2. You know, that is that shows that the lot split. Now, you know, lot 1B, is that a lot that is suitable to build on or anything? Because it looks like they carved out very narrow lots just to get the 1.25 acres. Lot 1A is a square, and then the other lots are long rectangles. I mean, is there a problem there with those lots being able to be built on, like 1B? I mean, how can you get anything on there?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gonzalez, similar to what I was mentioning to Commissioner Trujillo, there is a section in the code that would, you know, if that lot was undeveloped and someone purchased it and was coming in to build a new residence, we could work with them on, you know, giving them a deviation of the setback.
The other question I have, it looks like on exhibit number 2, there's a lot line there, and that makes it the attached garage closer to the lot line. What if that lot 1B was, you know, combined back again to where it was before? Would there be a violation then on the north side of that lot?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gonzalez, if they were to consolidate the two lots, you know, back to its original state, I don't believe there would be a violation on that side.
On the north side?
Yeah, the north side.
And that's something that I think that when the lot split occurred, they also encumbered that lot with a variance, with a violation of the setbacks. Is that something that the land use would have caught at the time or anything, or not?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gonzalez, just looking at the plat, it looks like this was done in 2015, so prior to the SLDC. So at that time, there would have been a different setback requirement.
Okay, so
Mr.
that lot split kind of created a problem that exists today. That was what I understand.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gonzalez, if I may. So Gabe's correct. This plat was created in 2015 prior to the 2016 SLDC. So at that time, we allowed small lot family transfers. So this was a 2.5 acre minimum. They created the lot as a small lot family transfer, which created the 1.25 lot properties. It looks to me like the house was existing in the middle of that 2.5 acre lot. And at that time, we had to go to Commissioner Cerna's question, the setback at that time was 5 feet. That was throughout the county. And each individual overlays or the code itself, depending on the zoning district, allowed for different setbacks. In this case, a 50-foot and a 25-foot setback.
Well, thank you for the explanation. It's very helpful. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you, JJ.
Mr. Chairman,
Go for it.
same kind of questions I would like to ask the staff. I'm looking at Exhibit 2 also and Exhibit 1. I notice here on Exhibit 2 that there's this well easement. And I'm trying to ascertain how close is this construction to this well easement? How close is this structure going to be to this well?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Krentz, you know, I may refer to that question to the applicant, but that's the first time that I had noticed that well easement.
Well, maybe you can just help me understand the diagrams a little bit better. On number 2, exhibit number 2, we've got the outline of the residence there, right? And then on exhibit number 1, we've got the outline of existing home, proposed addition. So those two together, I mean, it almost looks like this is the proposed addition in addition to what we see as residence on exhibit 2? Or is residence include both of those?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Krantz, can you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm just trying to reconcile these two images. Exhibit 1 has house and proposed addition, okay? And then in Exhibit 2, we've got the outline of residence. And I'm trying to understand, does existing house and proposed addition, is that within that shaded area called residence, or is this proposed addition like in addition to what we see as residence on Exhibit 2?
So Mr. Chair, Commissioner Krantz, the addition that you're seeing on Exhibit 1 is an addition to the existing residence that you would see on Exhibit 2.
Okay, so that would say to me then that that's essentially almost right on top of this well.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Krantz, yes, it's looking like it'd be pretty close. Without a scale, I'd have to look at it, but it is very close.
So then my question is do we have requirements in the code about distances between residential structures and wells?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Krantz, I may refer that to Mr. Ladiniaga.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Krantz, no, in the code, there's not really a distance, maybe for septic tanks or other, facilities like that, but as far as the structure, the addition that you're talking about, that's a garage that is halfway built. That's that's why they're here, it was a violation, and they came in to ask for the variance to permit that where it's at. And it looks to me like the site plan calls it, on one end, it's 19 feet on one side and 10 feet on the other from the property line. It looks like on the plat that you're looking at, it looks like the well is right along the property line or within that, I believe it's a 5-foot setback on the plat.
Yeah, it's within that easement there.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. A little bit on that same note, if you look at that same site plan on Exhibit 1, and then you go to Exhibit 6, which is an aerial, which should be showing of what's actually out there, it looks like there's a detached garage that was already built there, and it looks like it's real close to the existing structure, and it looks like it's close to that well area as well. A question that I would have is that I think I'm not sure how much if the fire department's been involved in this review, but I think the fire department requires a 10-foot separation between structures.
Mr. Chair, that is an older aerial, but the most current one that we have on Exhibit 6. But what you're seeing on there is, no longer there. It's been removed.
So it was demolished.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if it was demolished or, just relocated, removed. Not sure.
Okay. Yeah, and it does look at that easement, that water easement might be getting encroached upon, pretty close. Okay,
Mr. Chair, I think, I'm just trying to understand the lay of the land right now. And my understanding is that if we look at the backside of Exhibit 5, it's a kind of oblique view of the existing residence, and there's an addition that tees off of that is not roofed in blue, but is covered in, a building fabric. Is that what currently exists? If we were to go out there, is that what currently exists? So the garage that tees off the existing residence is not yet roofed, or at least at the time of this photo, is not yet roofed. Is that what the current site looks like? I'm just trying to sort all these photos and diagrams out. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Abode, that photo was on Exhibit 5, was provided by the applicant. I haven't been able to make it out to the site, but I believe that's probably the most current and accurate photo we have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions of staff? Okay, let's see what the applicant has to say. Please come forward and swear in.
Raise your right hand. Swear from the testimony about to give us the whole truth. Please state your name.
Travis Dixon, and 11A Nova Road, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Miguel Hernandez, 6 Estrellas Road South.
Okay, are you going to swear him in? This one? Oh, this one, okay. All right, are you, Mr. Dixon, are you going to speak for the applicant?
Yes.
Okay, please proceed.
So, to answer some of the questions, yes, they're, the lay of the land, so you see that there's a blue structure there off to the north side of the, I guess, property. And that used to be a carport, like a metal carport. That's what you're seeing there. That no longer is there, that has been moved. And now there is a structure that is being built, the garage, the detached from the, well, there's a detached carport and a attached garage on the north side. That is like mid-construction on the garage on the north side. And then someone had asked a question about where the well is located. That's about 15 feet from the actual structure that's being built now.
Okay, are you going to provide a presentation of an explanation of what you're trying to do here? Or?
Well, I was just kind of going, Gabe did a wonderful job of explaining exactly what's going on, and I was just hoping to, this is the first time I've ever been through something like this, so I'm just here to answer some questions. And
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commission to the applicant? Wendy?
Yeah, hi.
So-
I'm trying to, I'm on Exhibit 5 on the back, and where it shows the yellow building, that is currently being built now?
On Exhibit 5, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, let me look. So no, Exhibit 5, everything there is currently there.
On the back side of 5, the yellow with the Tyvek roof?
Yes. So what the yellow is, that is just like framing, OSB wood. And then you'll see the roof structure just has like a underlayment on it for getting ready to do the metal roof.
Okay, and that's what it looks like now?
Yes, yes, exactly. That's what's there right now. If you guys went out on site, that's there.
Okay, and that's pointed to the north,
Um,
towards the well, this yellow structure, is that pointed?
So the front of that yellow structure, you'll see like a, that would be like the garage door going right there.
Right.
On the back side of that building, 15 feet back is where the well is located.
Okay.
I guess that would be the back side of the garage is like the east side.
Okay,
Yes, yep.
that's the proposed addition on the on.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And that building or that structure that's being built is about a little bit more than 10 feet away from the actual property line that is there today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Carl?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for coming here today. So beyond the structure that we're talking about, that's the addition of the garage, there's a carport that's been put in place as well that's 21 feet from the property line that's in question as well. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that carport, is that a permanent structure as well, or is it something that was?
It is, yes. It started out to be a kind of a carport, but yes, is enclosed and on a concrete foundation.
You know, I'm trying to the crux of this to me is that in the end is that, a permit wasn't applied for. That's ultimately why you guys are here. One of the main reasons, I should say.
Absolutely.
But I also want to look at, what does this do for people in the future in these areas where these setbacks were at least for the size of property or geometries, not suitable for? Because if I take, certainly when they subdivided this other piece of property and you got 80 foot along a property length and you got 50-foot setbacks, it's unbuildable. And so I worry more about, people in the future, even if they go with, they say, I'm gonna go get a building permit, I'm gonna go and do this the way I need to get it done. And then what is the process for these people? And I'm almost wondering if something could be done where, some maybe amending, not you guys, but amending the Sustainable Land Development Code in some of these areas where you take a look at the tracts of land that it's not feasible. Without going with a building permit, they would have told you, obviously, they would have said, no, you can't do this. And then you'd have had to look at your other options. But I feel because, you want to develop, you want to progress, you want to make a property nice for your family. And, you buy the land and then something gets approved by a governmental entity a couple of years later and you didn't know. You did know to go get a building permit, though. That's one thing.
Absolutely, yeah. So, and you brought up some great questions earlier, and thank you for touching on those. So you'll see Exhibit 2. This was the plot that was provided to Mr. Hernandez when he bought the property in 2016. And you'll see that back before the SLD changed the requirements, they said the setbacks were about 5 feet. Well, so this plot shows the lot split, and they're saying it's a 15-foot easement shared between the two lots. So that's what Mr. Hernandez went off of. But after going through this process, him and I both have really kind of, it opened up our eyes and really showed us that, yeah, things like this absolutely should have been permitted. And we now know, like, wow, what a process this has been to get to this point, and just absolutely, for lack of better words, just apologize that we're even here. I mean, we want to, abide by the rules, and I can guarantee you that you will never see Mr. Hernandez in this room ever again based upon what he's had to go through to get to this point. So
To
appreciate
piggyback
it.
a little bit what Commissioner Trujillo said, there's rules out there where a lot of times you have to submit topography maps with a slope analysis map on it, because your house has to be built on certain slopes and it cannot be built on certain slopes. So all that is stuff that you need to be educated on as well.
Sure.
Steve?
Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at Exhibit 2 again here. It's hard to tell here, but it looks to me that you're building.
I'm having a hard time hearing you. I'm sorry.
I'm put it on. Yeah? Okay. It looks to me, and it's hard to say.
I'm sorry. I still can't hear you.
It looks to
there you
me,
go.
and it's
There you go.
hard to say from the exhibit number 2, because it doesn't really show this new structure on here. But it looks to me that you're building on top of the easement for the well. Because this well easement says 15 by 15 from the property line. And your diagram here in Exhibit 1 shows that that building is ranging from 10 from the property line to 19 from the property line.
So if you look at Exhibit 1, you'll see that at its closest point to the property line, it's 10 feet. And
Right.
then 60 feet to the east, it's about 19.
Right.
And that well, yeah, on Exhibit 2, it looks like it's a lot closer to the structure than it actually is. If you went out on site, it is about 15 feet away from the actual structure.
Does it make any sense?
Well, I see two problems here right now.
Okay.
One is the problem we're discussing about the easement. But the other one is, I think there's a real possibility that you're building on top of an easement illegally. And until we see some sort of survey that actually plots this all out, that's a direction that is very difficult to deal with here. I mean, you may be right. You may be just grazing the corner and not on it, but I can't tell.
Sure. No,
I can't tell from these pictures where this is at.
Sure.
And if the county approves this easement and it's on top of if we approve this variance, and this variance puts this building on top of an illegal easement, I don't know what that does.
Aren't easements recorded? You know, it'd be like a deed restriction or a...
Yeah, it's here on the plat, right?
Right, but there'd be information on it somewhere.
Well, that's exhibit number 2. No, that's not what I mean. What we don't have is we don't have a 2-scale picture that shows the easements of the property, including this well easement, and this structure. We don't have that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Steve.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
Your neighbors here, Lot 1B, who are they?
Ramon. I'm sorry, I don't have the last name. Yeah. His
Have you
first
talked
name is
with them?
Ramon. Yes.
What did they say about this?
He has not given any indication to Mr. Hernandez that he's upset about the structure being built or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
And we've sent out letters. They've seen the yellow sign on the building. And
Thank
that
you.
is a shared well between that neighbor and Miguel, by the way.
Yeah, I know, and that's another reason why I'm asking. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Eric, go ahead.
Thanks very much. Just to follow up on what Carl and Steve were saying. I think Carl's observation that Lot 1B is pretty much unbuildable because of the change in setbacks. And I wonder if it were possible to reach out to your neighbor who owns 1B, and it would cost money to do the surveying and things, but basically give him a chunk of your east side and get a chunk of your north side from him. So basically reconfigure his lots so you each have 1 1/4 each, but it would allow him in the future to potentially build in that 86-foot stretch. He could actually put a structure there that would meet the requirements of the setback. I don't know if this is something that you've considered, but it might be a way to both improve your situation and his situation. And so I don't know what your relationship is with him, but he's pretty much in the same boat because he can build I don't know if it's 25 on both sides or 50 on both sides, or, so 50 on both sides, so he can build a negative 14-foot structure there. He basically cannot build in that leg, and I don't think he can build on the northern leg. And so I don't know what the resolution might be, but there might be a creative way that you could kind of get around this. It would take some effort, but it might be far less effort than ripping this garage off.
Sure, and I completely agree, and thank you for bringing that up. The only thing is where his septic tank is located and where Mr. Hernandez's septic tank is located, it'd be kind of hard to do that. And that's why we built it where he built it, because of where the septic tank is and the leach field are located.
Got it, okay.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Any other questions from the commission? Okay, this is a public hearing. Anybody out there want to talk on behalf or against this project? Please come forward. Okay, being that there is no one in the public that wants to speak on this project, what is the pleasure of the commission? Oh, I'm sorry. Jose, do we have anybody online?
Mr. Chair, I see no one wanting to speak on this case online.
Thank you, Jose. Okay. Carl? Sure. Please do.
So I'm just trying to get a better understanding. For the person that bought this lot in the back, and before I got here, I actually looked on the county's search tools for parcels, and you see that a lot of these lots, all of these properties have this same exact problem. They're just grandfathered in. It's just the difference is that you put something in after the 2017, but all your neighbors are all within this 50-foot easement already. Just
Yes.
I counted probably 80% of them again. And so in reference to like Lot 1B here, Mr. Bustos, how would the process go when somebody comes in to put a home or a structure on this?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Trujillo, yes, they would have to come forward for a variance and go through the process. And that's what happened when they created the family transfer and created these lots. And like I said, they probably rushed in 2015, and then we have the 2016 ordinance that doesn't allow the small lot family transfer anymore. And on top of that, the La Cienega Overlay District creating, in this case, in this zoning district, creating that 25 and 50-foot setback.
So just one follow-up question. How many, the different zoning districts, how many are there in the county, and how many of them have such a wide setback of 50 feet on each side? Is it the majority? Is it just a few? Trying to get an idea. Sure, no problem.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Trujillo, there are 12 individual overlay districts, and you're correct. A lot of them adopted the regular setbacks set forth in the SLDC, and some of them created their own setbacks. A perfect example is the San Marcos area. That's a 100-foot setback. It works on the larger lots, but then on the smaller lots, it doesn't work, that are non-conforming lots.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Tough. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a comment.
Yeah, please do.
It's just a general comment, and I wanted to reiterate what it says in the staff report about variances. It says, where due to extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions of the property, the strict application of the code would result in peculiar or exceptional practical difficulties or exceptional and undue hardship on the owner. So that's something that I take very close to heart. those exact words. And, this is my second term as a planning commissioner, and I've seen in the past 2.5 years several times that applicants have brought forward variance requests, and largely for residential uses. And, I just want to emphasize that the two structures are not residential uses. It's a carport structure and a attached garage to a residential structure. So, in my personal opinion, these types of structures where humans are not going to be occupying, I find that they have, less of an impact. There's not water running and there's not plumbing, there's not, mechanical. It was, ambiguous in the report with regards to possibly a light or electricity being in the detached garage. So, I just wanted to remind the commissioners, and the public and the applicant and staff just how I've read what was provided for us. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The only thing I would kind of say to that is that how do you come up with a hardship when someone does something without a permit? That kind of mutes it type kind of thing, on some of these issues. But having said that, this happens sometimes to us in the city when we're reviewing things. We have smaller lots over there, and a lot of it is based on fire protection and fire access, 10-foot separation. So a lot of times people can't meet their setbacks, and we're smaller in the city. We have shorter setbacks. A lot of times what we actually have them do in the city is that if they can't meet the setback, or if they did it without a permit or whatever, we'll have them build a firewall on the property line, and that usually works in the city. I'm not saying that would apply to this property, but in the city there is smaller lots, and we come across this all the time. So I'm just throwing it out there for information. Okay,
Mr. Chairman?
Steve.
This may be out of order, but could I ask the applicant a couple more questions?
Yes.
Thank you. Are you running a business on this property?
We park some vehicles on the property, yes, but no, we don't run a business out of the property.
Okay. Are you renting any of this property or space of this property?
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, what's the discussion or pleasure of the commission? Anybody got anything out there? JJ? Rhea? Somebody? JJ?
I'm ready to make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Please do.
And on case number 225220, Miguel Hernandez variance, I have to go with the recommendation of the hearing officer and staff recommendation to deny this variance.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor. Do we got a second on it?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All opposed? I'm sorry.
Opposed?
Yeah, okay. One opposed. Okay, so the motion fails, and you can appeal this decision to the BCC, right, Jose? Can this decision be appealed to the BCC?
Mr. Chair, we were just discussing that. Yes, upon recordation of the final order for this case, they have 30 days to submit an appeal to the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
If you have any other questions on future permits, please contact staff.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Next case is 22-5140 Madrid Cannabis. Jose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madrid Cannabis Incorporated, DBA Mad Reefer, applicant Lori Lindsay, agent, requests approval of a conditional use permit to allow 3 commercial greenhouses to grow cannabis. An existing 1,840 square foot structure will be utilized as a greenhouse. An existing 160 square foot construction trailer will be utilized as storage, and an existing 300 square foot structure will be utilized as a dry cure room. The applicant also proposes to construct 2 greenhouses on the site. The site is zoned commercial neighborhood within the Madrid Community District overlay. Table 9-6-8 and Madrid Community District Use Table illustrates that a commercial greenhouse is a conditional use. Ordinance number 2021-03, section 10.22.3.3 states, a cannabis producer or cannabis producer micro business that cultivates cannabis plants indoors shall be treated the same as the following use, and that is a commercial greenhouse. The structures are within a 5.04 acre mine shaft site. The site is located at 14 and 15 Rail Yard Lane via New Mexico 14 SD and within SDA 2 within Section 36 Township 14 North, Range 7 East, Commission District 3. The applicant requests approval of a CUP to allow an existing 1,840 square foot structure to be utilized as a greenhouse, an existing 160 square foot construction trailer to be utilized as storage, and an existing 300 square foot structure to be utilized as a dry cure room, and to construct 2 greenhouses for the purpose of producing cannabis. The facility will be located on 5.04 acre parcel. The applicant is required to abide by very strenuous New Mexico regulations and licensing department regulations pertaining to the facility's security systems and monitoring. The applicant states, Madrid Cannabis Inc., DBA Mad Reefer, intends to utilize 2 greenhouses. One is 20 by 80 and the other is 14 by 80. These 2 greenhouses, along with an existing 1,840 square foot structure, will be utilized for full seasonal grow and will house 100 to 150 mature plants. The greenhouses will not utilize grow lights of any kind and will utilize natural light from March to complete harvest in the fall. At any given time, there will be not more than 3 employees working in the area. The master grower will be full-time, and all other employees will be part-time. The applicant has addressed the CUP criteria and staff has responded to the applicant's comments. The applicant addressed and staff reviewed the following applicable design standards: access, fire protection, fences and walls, lighting, signs, parking and loading, utilities, water supply and water conservation, protection of historic and archaeological resources, terrain management, solid waste, and air quality and noise. Building and Development Service staff has reviewed this project for compliance with pertinent SLDC requirements and has found that the facts presented support the request for a conditional use permit to allow the production of cannabis on the mine shaft site. The use is compatible with the current development within the affected zoning districts. The use will not impact adjacent land uses, and the application satisfies the submittal requirements set forth in the SLDC, inclusive of the conditional use criteria set forth in Chapter 4, Section 4.9.6.5. The review comments from the State Historic Preservation Office and county staff have established findings that this application is to allow a commercial greenhouse use for the purpose of producing cannabis is in compliance with state requirements and design standards set forth in the SLDC. On October 8, 2022, this request was presented to the Sustainable Land Development Hearing Officer. The hearing officer memorialized findings of fact and conclusions of law in a recommended order on this request. The hearing officer, based on the evidence presented, recommended approval of the request to allow an existing 1,800 square foot structure to be utilized as a greenhouse, an existing 160 square foot construction trailer to be utilized as storage, an existing 300 square foot structure to be utilized as a dry cure room, and to construct 2 greenhouses on the site for the purpose of producing cannabis with the conditions recommended by staff. The recommendation of the hearing officer and staff's recommendation is for approval of a conditional use permit to allow an existing 1,840 square foot structure to be utilized as a greenhouse, an existing 160 square foot construction trailer to be utilized as a storage, an existing 300 square foot structure to be utilized as a dry cure room to construct 2 greenhouses for the purpose of producing cannabis, subject to the following conditions. Mr. Chair, may I enter these conditions into the record?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report and the exhibits listed below are hereby submitted as part of the hearing record. And I'd like to also mention that on Exhibit 2, where it shows us the site plan, the notes on the side are incorrect, so the square footage I used for the report and what's being built is the actual outline of the greenhouses and the structures that are being used. So on the notes on the side, it's the wrong square footage. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Jose. Does the commission have any questions of staff? Carl?
Thank you, Jose, for the presentation. There's, as far as I can tell in the presentation, there's not a survey showing or a site map, site plan of the whole area of where the new proposed structures are. Is there, there's a, on NBB-29, does that square around that indicate property line?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Trujillo, so NBB 27, as I mentioned with the notes, this shows the outline, the bottom cutout shows the entire site. And just a side note, this property did go through a master plan process to illustrate and define all the structures. There's a ton of structures out there with the Mine Shaft Tavern, and some of them were used for storage, some of them were used for other things. Just like this building that they're proposing to use as a grow, the existing 1,840 square foot building.
Okay.
So NBB 29 just shows the outline of the existing building and the parking, the building they're wanting to use for a dry cure room, and then the other one for storage. And it also shows their cistern to capture water on this. I thought I'd put as an exhibit, the master plan. Let me see if I did or not. Did not put the master plan as one of the exhibits, but as I mentioned, the 5-acre tract did go through a master plan and listed all the structures that are on the property.
Okay, so, I mean, just back from the last case, all the setback, what are the setbacks for this type of zone property?
On this commercial neighborhood, there are no setbacks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jose. Yeah, I noticed that too. I didn't see a plat in there at all as well.
I know there's a master plan because I worked on it, so.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that area. Is there going to be any improvements to Rail Yard Road or Rail Yard Lane Road?
There are no improvements with this application. That might be a question for the applicant or the agent for the applicant.
Okay. Any other questions? Steve?
I have a question for staff on the conditions here. Condition number 6, you say no manufacturing sales or consumption are allowed. Is, in these cases of marijuana production, is that not considered manufacturing? I mean, processes take place, right? It's not just growing there, it's harvested, it's dried, et cetera, et cetera.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Krantz, manufacturing by definition in the code is changing one matter into another, one product into the, so drying and then shipping it off to change it into, I don't know, gummies or edibles, or that would be considered manufacturing once it gets to that process, oils and so on. That's what would be considered manufacturing by the cannabis ordinance, and I believe the state requirements.
So you're recommending that growth and harvesting of this and drying, et cetera, is okay, but any kind of steps past that, like, for example, gummies or oils or et cetera, would not be permitted at that site. But have you talked with the applicant about security of this site?
I'm sorry?
Have you talked with the applicant about security on the site?
Yes, and there is security lighting, there'll be a fence. They have to abide by the state regulations, and one of my first comments in the summary was that they'd have to abide by very strenuous New Mexico regulations and licensing department regulations pertaining to the facility, security systems, and monitoring. So the state will make sure that they have a security lighting, alarms, whatever they need to do, some kind of fencing if that's what's required.
And that's in your recommendation section here?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Krantz, no, it's not. It was in my opening statement in the summary, last sentence in there.
So in the proposal here, I'm trying to find the section that talks about lighting. Security lighting. Yeah. 15. So these lights that are proposed for the security of this facility, would they still be in compliance with the county's lighting directives?
That would be one of the requirements, yes. So in the final drawings, the security lighting would have to be downward lit and shielded, and they'd have to meet the requirements of the lighting ordinance or the design standards in the SLDC for lighting.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the commissioners? Okay, is the applicant here?
Let me put this down first. Absolutely. I'm Lori Lindsay, 561 Garcia Street, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Oh.
We good?
Okay.
Okay, I'm the agent. I'm also a minority owner. I'm also the owner of the, I'm the managing member of Mineshaft Properties LLC. So the 5-acre site is owned by Mineshaft Properties LLC and is being leased to Matter Cannabis Inc. And through this process, because I have had some experience working with the county, I have been the lead on this. We're wanting to have a grow that is organic. It's not going to be very large. It's going to be not seen by the public. It's in an area of the property that's not where the public goes. It's not where the Mineshaft Tavern is. It's on the opposite end of the property. And pretty excited about it. There is already a dispensary on the property. And the growth is necessary. It's not even just something that's wanted, it is wanted, but it's also very necessary as a component to the dispensary. There's a lot of competition in this market. I don't know if you guys have been making yourself knowledgeable about how many dispensaries there are, and there's almost 600 dispensaries in the state. Tremendous competition. There's mega businesses out there. Many of them are 10,000 plants or more. This is going to be a 200-plant, micro-produced boutique operation that fits with the town of Madrid, and it's very important to the success of Madrid Cannabis Inc. Without it, I don't think that it would be a very big challenge. The dispensary is not in, Manal Street in Albuquerque. It's not in Anthony or Las Cruces. It's in a little remote tourist town in a mountain village that is dependent upon tourism. The locals are 200. You have 200 people, there's 2 dispensaries. So the grow is super important because it's going to give an opportunity to create a product that is unique to the area and therefore will be something that a tourist or even the locals might be more interested in purchasing and creating a more viable business. Everything about this project has gone through the rigors of the state and the rigors of the county as far as meeting the design standards and being compliant. We're asking for your approval. This has been a year-long process. It's been a very expensive year-long process for Madrid Cannabis Inc. And we would like to see this get approved because fortunately or unfortunately, in this industry, you're a small business, you're playing with the big boys and girls. So I appreciate anything, getting this approved and letting us move forward.
Thank you, Lori. Does any of the commissioners have questions of the applicant? Carl.
Yes, thank you for your, giving us your, the story of your business. I know being in business is tough and being in a small community is tough as well too, but I'm glad we need agriculture and we need to move forward with stuff like this in our communities. But I was going to ask you about the water. How much water is required for 200 plants?
Chairman Gonzalez and Commissioner Trujillo, it is estimated to be 150 gallons per plant. So, for every 200 plant, gosh, I'm not able to do the math right now, but it's 200 times 150 gallons. We're only going to have one full season for all plants, but the building will have multiple grows within the year. But it's compared to certain other types of grows, this is going to be a minimal water usage. Water catchment is utilized on the property as well. So it's going to be minimized, but it's 150 gallons per plant is the metric that we've used to estimate water utilization.
Okay. And the reason why I asked that is that I see that under water supply, it talks about the water's going to come from the Madrid water supply or community well. And it says Madrid water does not have any use restrictions. And so I know this comes up time and time again where there's community wells and they have some sort of an adjudicated right or some amount of water that they can take out, and sometimes a lot of communities are already above that limit, and now the state engineer is trying to claw back or put penalties in place or restrictions in place. And
Sure.
You have any idea where Madrid Community Well sits as far as their usage in reference to what the state engineer has?
I do, actually.
Okay, great.
I'm the vice president of Madrid Water.
Okay.
And we're always looking for more water. But water is there, but finding it, through your well. I mean, we've had 6 wells drilled in this one little area in Madrid. However, we have 43 acre feet of water rights as a community. We're averaging 13 to 17 acre feet. And sourcing more wells or building more wells, there is money available for it. I'm also working on a septic system for our community that would even further, save water for the community as a whole. And in the old days, there were 2 water systems in town, and one of them was the water that was dewatering from the mines, which billions of gallons, okay? We're not talking about just thousands of gallons, billions of gallons of water back up until the 1950s. So there's plenty of water in the area. It's just, getting it to the right location or drilling the right well. So we're going to be just a small blip on that, the utilization. I mean, we're not going to be making a big impact.
So if I heard you correctly, you said that the state engineer has, for the community well there of Madrid, allocated 43 acre-feet per year, and you guys, as a community, average about 13. Is that what I heard?
We do. 17 acre-feet has been the highest utilization for the town of Madrid.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Carl. Lori, can you talk to me about the terrain and stormwater management production?
Yes, I mean, our property is very unique. It is a old mining operation. I mean, so it's pretty significant as far as the use that's been there. And because of the abandoned mine, we work with abandoned mines quite a bit. So we have more than above the property, if you will. Half of the property has been completely remediated, and it was a major job, multi-million-dollar job for water management. We had a major storm in 2013 that was, it wasn't devastating, but it was very difficult. And so now an additional project is planned, and it was planned for 5 years ago. You know how that goes. But they are going to plan on breaking ground by spring this year sometime. I don't know, maybe you guys know more, because I know it has to be permitted. It's been in process for a long time, but those are the plans that they're going to enact above on the north side of the hill, or the east side of the town, but the north side of the northeast side. So, but as far as the management, the miners, they had pretty great water systems, and during this process of working on the property and cleaning it off, we've actually found some ancestral drains, if you will, that go back to the turn of the century. There's also a huge 4-foot tunnel that literally goes through my entire property that is a big water catchment system. It's kind of there's a big hillside behind me that has a valley. Water goes to the valley, and it goes into this water catchment system that's was completely upgraded a few years ago by abandoned mines, and it's a 36-inch pipe that goes from the mountain bottom to all the way to the arroyo.
Yeah,
It's pretty significant.
I remember my time at the county walking all those areas with you guys out there.
Yeah,
Is Mr. Sinicki still around?
Is who?
Mr. Tim Sinicki still around out there in that area?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I wonder. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Wendy?
I keep losing my earpiece. You had mentioned that, so everything that you're going to grow is going to be sold on site in the dispensary.
Not necessarily. It could be sold to other dispensaries or it could be taken to a manufacturing company and having it processed into oils. As far as who we sell to, but as far as, it's not going to just be the one dispensary. We're not sure yet. I hope we sell all of it, I don't know.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair,
JJ?
I've got some questions. Thank you for being here. The questions I have is, you're allowed 200 plants. Is that what you're doing? Up to 200 plants for your micro grower?
That's the plan.
And how many crops, and where do you start your seedlings? What is your plan for starting seedlings?
I wish we could have done it last year. So the plan is, as soon as you guys approve this, to start the seeds. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have a facility where you're going to start your plants.
The existing structure, the 840 square foot structure that Jose was referring to, the site plan for that particular building has a veg room, which is where you start the plants, to grow the plants and get them started. And then they would move into a full grow room, if you want to call it that. But so we would be starting the plants indoors.
And how many harvests are you going to have in the season?
There's going to be one main harvest for the outdoor, inside the greenhouse structures, I don't know what to call them. Are they accessory structures but they're greenhouse structures, whereas the building's being called a greenhouse also, so it kind of confuses me. But there's a full seasonal grow, natural full seasonal organic grow, and then indoors, the hope is that we would have at least three grows there, maybe four.
Are you talking about having outdoor plants?
Yes. Well, it's going to be indoor inside of a greenhouse, but the greenhouse, of course, lets light indoors, inside.
And what kind of air filtration are you going to have? Because there's an odor that's given off by the plants when they
Air
get to
filtration that's required is a carbon filtration.
and that's what you're going to have for your
Yes.
in where you go.
We're going to have that in the main building and also in the greenhouses.
And then the other question I had is on page NBB 8 in our packet, it says that the Mineshaft Tavern has unlimited water use. How does that work out for the other residents of Madrid?
Well, actually, that's not, the Mineshaft Tavern has its own well and it has 3 acre-feet, and I have a handshake for 10 more acre-feet from the engineers. We haven't gotten it done yet. So, but that's not what we're using. We're using our Madrid water connections here. The unlimited supply is probably, as a vice president of Madrid Water, I assure you there's going to be no waste of water.
Well, the thing is, unlimited supply doesn't ring well in the times of drought that we're in. I mean, nobody has unlimited water.
No one has unlimited anything, but you definitely have access to enough water supply for the use that's required.
But my concern is that anybody that uses water in Santa Fe County should have a meter to meter how much water is being used.
We have meters on every single thing that we do.
You have what?
We have water meters for the water connections, and we also have a meter for our well as well.
Well, how come that wasn't stated in this packet? It says unlimited water use. That's what I read.
I think.
Now you tell me different.
Commissioner Gonzalez, I believe that what has been stated is that Madrid Water, as a quasi-governmental agency, does not have stipulations on how water may be used or how much water you can use. But I assure you, as a community, a small community, if I were to, or this company was to go out there and start just wasting water, it would be very ugly.
I understand that, but you can use as much water as you can afford to pay,
Well,
usually.
that's
I mean,
true.
that's the bottom line. And then there's always restrictions in Santa Fe and other systems, the county.
Mm-hmm.
They give you a minimum amount of water that you can use, like, a quarter acre foot per season, per year. And then if you exceed that, they'll come and they can penalize you with a lot of big water bill and stuff, so.
Well, it's a big water bill, but you know what the worst thing is in the Santa Fe is when they post it in the paper.
Yeah.
If you're a business, you don't want to be posted in the paper for being the big water user
That's
of the
correct.
world. So I think there's a lot of restrictions, and not all of them are governmental.
Well, my recommendation is that whatever water you use for your grow facility, that it be metered separately.
It is.
Okay, that wasn't stated here. I'm just referring to that. I read unlimited water, and that doesn't sound good to anybody.
I think that's a semantics issue, but I certainly take under advisement.
Thank you.
Thank you, JJ. Any other questions?
Chair?
Rhea?
I have a question also related to the water with regards to, I believe that Madrid, the water system and probably individual wells, they seem to have a high mineral content. Is that correct?
Well, it's not as hard as, it's actually softer water than Santa Fe, but it has a huge gaseous thing with sulfur, which is really good for you, by the way.
Oh, okay.
But it aerates, so it's not something that that's water quality will be dealt with. There's different ways to deal with water quality as far as the grow is concerned. You want a little slightly acidic water, so there will be some treatment of the water to create that environment. Because
I
we're,
get-
we're super high alkaline in Madrid, and it's not normal. It's not a normal level, you know? But it is water that can be used for the grow.
So just to clarify, there will be some treatment of the water for the plants.
Well, just like you treat your soils and condition it for certain plants, there's conditioning that will occur, and it's going to be a natural processes to make, you know, the soil more acidic, because that's what cannabis enjoys.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rhea. Any other questions from staff? I mean, from commission? I have one of Laurie. So if somebody goes to your dispenser and picks up a little stash, are they going to be able to walk into the Mineshaft Tavern and use it over there?
Of course not.
Okay, curious.
Just like you can't bring the beer into the dispensary either. It's, you know, these are premises that have distinct lines. I mean, obviously, you know, I've owned that bar for many years, and so people do walk off with their beers. Just, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I've never seen that. But they're not allowed to go and walk off the bar and go to the dispensary. You're not allowed to imbibe cannabis products in the public or on alcoholic premises.
It's good to know. Thank you.
It's good to know. Let's just keep that in check.
Definitely. Might have to go to Madrid sometime. Okay, this is a public hearing. Anybody out there want to speak for or against this project? Please come forward. Jose, check the internet for me, please.
Mr. Chair, I do not see anybody on WebEx that wants to comment.
Okay, I don't see anybody here in person that wants to speak up either. So I'm going to close the public hearing. Sure, Carl, go ahead.
Mr. Larañada, just out of my own curiosity, when somebody comes in to do a grow permit in the county, do they need a conditional use permit regardless? They have to go through this process? Is that the way it works?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Trujillo, it all depends on the zoning district, but most of the commercial greenhouses in zoning districts, case, under this zoning district commercial neighborhood, it was a conditional use.
So there's a difference, a distinction between open grow, meaning out in a field, and growing in a greenhouse? Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Trujillo, that's correct.
And so which one is more restrictive, or which one is the one that requires more thorough vetting?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Trujillo, they're the same review as you'll see later on the next case.
Okay. Thank you.
May I
Mr.
say
Larañada.
something in that regards?
Sure.
So when the cannabis was legalized, obviously there was a new ordinance that was created at the Board of County Commissioners. I went to that meeting, and a lot of things were not addressed at that meeting. And as far as it was new, everything was new, so in all fairness. But what happened is that all the traditional communities in the Santa Fe County, the rules were changed from the SLDC to be where you had to go through a conditional use process. So because we're located in a traditional community is why we had to go through this process, because prior to this, greenhouses were allowed in Madrid.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. It's closed. And what is the pleasure of the commission?
Mr. Chairman,
Steve?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I move that we accept the recommendation of staff and approve the conditional use permit for case number 225140 Mad Reefer conditional use permit.
Okay, that's with conditions, I assume? Your motion?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, it's second by Rhea. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Well, Lori, you just got approved, and good luck.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Also want to thank Jose Larrañaga for guiding us through this process.
Mr. Chair, if I may, before this next case, the applicant has brought in some handouts, and there was another, and I know it's late, and I know in the past you've kind of wanted to look at these before you start the hearing, because then you're just fumbling around paper. So just making that comment in case you want to take a little break to look at these documents that came in.
Yeah, let's take if the commission agrees, let's take a 5-minute break. 5 minute good enough, or 10 minutes? What do you guys want? Let's take a 5-minute break so you can get these handouts out and look at them.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, let's get started again. Call this meeting back to order. All right. Case number 22-5210, LRA Growers LLC. Jose?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. LRA Growers LLC, applicant Santa Fe Permits LLC, agent requests approval of a CUP to allow a cannabis producer business that will cultivate cannabis plants outdoors. Ordinance 2021-03, Section 10.22.3.4 illustrates that a cannabis producer or cannabis producer business that cultivates cannabis plants outdoors shall be a conditional use in all rural fringe, rural residential, residential fringe, and traditional community zoning districts. The 10.22 acre site is within the San Marcos Community District Overlay and Zone Rural Residential. The site is located at 62 South Fork Extension, SDA 2 within Section 1, Township 14 North, Range 8 East, Commission District 5. The applicant requests approval of a conditional use permit to allow a cannabis producer microbusiness to cultivate cannabis plants outdoors. The 10.22 acre site is zoned rural residential within the San Marcos Community District Overlay. The SLDC at Section 10.22.3.4 states that a cannabis producer or cannabis producer microbusiness that cultivates cannabis plants outdoors is a conditional use within a rural residential zoning district. The applicant is also requesting that it be permitted to use an existing shed as a drying area after the cannabis is harvested. The applicant states there are 10 different recreational use licenses issued by the state of New Mexico. LRA Growers is requesting the most limited and basic New Mexico cannabis producer microbusiness license, which allows a cannabis producer at a single licensed premise to possess no more than 200 total mature cannabis plants at any given time, at any one time. The applicant has addressed the CUP criteria and staff has responded to the applicant's comments. The applicant addressed and staff reviewed the following applicable design standards: access, fire protection, fences and walls, lighting, signs, parking and loading, road design standards, water supply and water conservation, terrain management, solid waste and air quality and noise. Building and Development Services staff has reviewed this project for compliance with pertinent SLDC requirements and ordinance number 2021-03 and has found that the facts presented support the request for a conditional use permit to allow a 4,225 square foot area for the purpose of producing cannabis. The use is compatible with the current development within the affected zoning districts. The use will not impact adjacent land uses, and the application satisfied the submittal requirements set forth in the SLDC, inclusive of the conditional use criteria set forth in Chapter 4, Section 4.9.6.5. The review comments from the State Historic Preservation Office and county staff have established findings that this application to allow a 4,225 square foot area to cultivate cannabis plants outdoors is in compliance with state requirements, ordinance number 2021-03, and pertinent design standards set forth in the SLDC. On November 8th, 2022, this request was presented to the Sustainable Land Development Hearing Officer. The hearing officer memorialized findings of facts and conclusions of law in a recommended order on this request. The hearing officer, based on the evidence presented, recommended the approval of the request to allow a 4,225 square foot area for the purpose of outdoor production of cannabis with the conditions recommended by staff. On the December 8th, 2022 hearing officer's hearing, 7 individuals testified in opposition of the request for an outdoor production of cannabis at this site. The testimony of the individuals are stated in the minutes recorded on December 29th, 2022 with the Santa Fe Clerk's Office. The recommendation of the hearing officer and staff's recommendation for approval of a conditional use permit to allow a 65 by 65-foot area for the purpose of producing cannabis outdoors and to utilize an existing shed for the purpose of drying cannabis after the harvest, subject to the following conditions. Mr. Chair, may I enter these conditions into the record?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report and the exhibits listed below are hereby submitted as part of the hearing record, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Jose. Does the commission have any questions of staff? Okay, let's see. I have a question. Jose, I don't know if you can answer this one, but how far is the closest residential structure to this place?
Mr. Chair, I don't know about the adjoining neighbors, but the applicant does live there, so that's, but maybe the applicant or the agent would probably be able to answer that.
Okay, all right, is the applicant here? Please come forward. Yeah.
We go. Jennifer Salambini, 51 Rito Guicu, Santa Fe, 87507.
James Harris, 62 South Fork Extension, Santa Fe.
Michael Salambini, 51 Rito Guicu, Santa Fe, 87507.
And while Jose gets ready the presentation, I did want to answer your question, Commissioner Chair, that the growing area is 218 feet from the applicant's property line and over 1/10 of a mile from the closest neighboring residence.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll just click it. Okay. So, as I'm sure you know, New Mexico legalized adult recreational user marijuana on April 12th in 2021. That there are, as we mentioned earlier, there are 10 different uses. LRA growers is the most limited and basic. About that. And just to clarify, this grow area is outdoors and it is 65 by 65. It is more in line with a garden than a farm. It is not a farm, it is a grow area. And I want to make that really, really clear. It is a 65 by 65 grow area. And let's see, and essentially we were going to do a commercial greenhouse. However, those are prohibited in the area, but outdoor grow is a conditional use in that zoning district. And also, it's not within 200 feet of another retailer or a consumption area. It is not within 500 feet of a sensitive use area, which is a school or a daycare facility or a public park or anything of that nature. There's some other businesses in the area, so it's a business-friendly area. There's Apogee Spirulina, Spirulina Algae Farm, Spirulicious Foods, Anderson Ranch Art Center and Ceramic Studio, and Etchmaster Glass Blowing, Etching, Training, and Workshops. Jim will be the only employee at this business. And just some key factors that are most important. Water will be transported from the automated bulk facility. And the roads, there will not be any additional traffic. The grow area is behind the residence. James Harris is the only employee, and he will be hauling in water, so it'll be about twice a week. So that'll only be any additional traffic, if that, during the grow season. So the impact on the roads and the roadways is 0. Security, LRA Growers, James Harris, he's the owner, so he lives on the property. And should the need arise, he does have access to remotely remotely access security features on the property, such as the surveillance cameras and the motion lighting. And last, the visibility. The fenced grow area cannot be seen from any residence in any direction from the road. It is concealed. It is behind the residence. There are trees. It is concealed. It is not visible. And this is just the proposed grow area photo, real time. And natural light will be used in organic soils, which there will be no fertilizers, 0. Plant saucers will line the plants so that catches runoff, and there will be no interaction with the ground, with the soil. And the privacy fencing is earth toned, so it matches the landscape. And this is the proposed site plan and of the grow area. And as you can see, it has all the security features and the landscape and what's existing on the site. And again, the proposed grow area. There's some ponding calculations as well. And that pretty much, that sums it up. Questions?
Okay, thank you. Does the commission have any questions of the applicant?
I do.
Steve?
Your statement here that hauling the water will have the impact on the local and regional roadworks is 0. To say that that's a gloss is really being generous. By the calculations of some of the people that have written to the county opposing this, they're talking about multiple trips of heavy trucks to move the amount of water that you're talking about. Let's see. You're talking about 65 plants, which is what I think you're requesting. But in fact, the area that you're proposing could support as many as 196 plants. But even apart from that, just hauling the amount of water that you're talking about would be taking trucks of 22,000 pounds across the roads out there, which are not built to any kind of standard that we know of. So to say that this is 0 is ridiculous.
Well,
To me, that's the big problem here, is that the amount of you're talking about hauling the water in, and hauling that amount of water in to make an agricultural product is going to be extensive, no matter how you slice it, just to keep these plants growing by your own calculations. And by what we just heard from a previous applicant, they're talking about 120 gallons of water per plant to get them through the growing season. So the impacts on the road are not negligible. That's a problem right there. Another concern raised by folks, maybe this should be considered, maybe it shouldn't, is the fact of the impact on neighborhood property values of having cannabis production next door, essentially. But then there's also consideration of the kinds of gases that are the cannabis production, cultivation outside releases that is clearly going to be moving around to the neighbors. Again, that's not addressed in any way. Have you talked with the neighbors? Have you had meetings with the neighbors?
Yes, actually, we did have a neighborhood meeting, but I would like to address about the use of water in the previous case. To be fair, her scope of work is a much broader scale than Mr. Harris's, and with regard on traffic being zero, he's coming and going from work. So on his way home from work, he will be toting the water. So it's just like a trip on his way home from work, just any other day. He will be doing that twice a week. The water that he will be bringing in on his trailer from his truck will be stored in a cistern. So there's not going to be heavy trucks coming in and out. If anything, his business has less of an impact of the neighboring businesses surrounding the area. And the other businesses in that area, if I may, use a lot more water. I mean, I think there's an algae growing business. So I think those pollutants and those uses of water should be considered, before this project. Again, it's a small growing season. It is a garden-sized thing. The project before was, again, on a much larger scale.
Yeah, but we're talking about over 2,000 gallons of water a week. Would you agree with that?
Go ahead. I'll let Jim answer that.
No, it's estimated at 1,200 gallons per week.
I don't know. We seem to have a difference of opinion here between two different growers. And yours are outside. They're not even in a greenhouse.
Because greenhouses are prohibited in that overlay district.
Well, this is a difficult thing about this water, about hauling this water around. Because clearly moving that much water is going to have an impact on roads, which is going to affect all the neighbors. There's no two ways around it. And, we can maybe argue about how much water you're really going to be hauling, but we have, information from other sources that says you're not, if you're thinking 1,200 gallons a week, you're probably not going to be hauling enough water to make this work.
That number is derived from 100 plants, which is what my plan is not to exceed that. I don't feel that I have enough room to go beyond that.
So just to be clear, how many trips of how many gallons are you proposing this is going to take a week?
2 trips per week, 600 gallons at a time.
To support 100 plants?
Yes, they'll be grown in 20-gallon containers.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve. Mr. Harris, could you explain to us your process? Are you going to pull a trailer with your truck? How many gallons are you going to be carrying? And the water. Just explain your process for hauling the water to the site.
Yes, it'll be a dual axle trailer, and it will carry 600 gallons per trip, twice a week.
And you're pulling it with a what size truck?
With a truck, yes. Well, with a pickup truck, yes.
Okay. Any other details you need to give us on this? Any other details you need to give us on this?
So, real quick, calculation-wise, 600 pounds of water equates to about 4,500 pounds. I'm sorry, 600 gallons of water is about 4,500 pounds. Your average full-size pickup truck weighs more than that. And so if we were to really split hairs on on the impact, then you could say that it would be equivalent to Mr. Harris driving down that road and someone following him in a pickup truck the same size as his, as often as he were to do it, you know. And keep in mind, this is only during a grow season. This is not year round. The businesses, I know the ceramic business, you know, there's multiple cars that go to that business just right around the corner, right up the road there, and every couple of days. And so that probably has even more of an impact, and that's year round, where this, like I said, 600 pounds equates to about the weight of a full-size pickup truck. And, you know, I mean, quite frankly, it's actually less because a full-size pickup truck, my full-size pickup truck is about 6,700 pounds. So, you know, this is less than 5,000 pounds per trip. So back to that impact, I'm not sure how that would, you know, if he had a visitor or he had someone coming to his house, say, every day visiting him, you know, or an employee like the others, that would probably be about the same impact. And I don't think anybody would be complaining or bringing that up.
So this is a private driveway, typical roadway with a base course or dirt on it with bar ditches on each side probably?
Yeah, it's basically your typical dirt road in the rural areas.
Okay, thank you. Steve, you have another question?
You're not really you're being disingenuous here. Yeah, a pickup truck weighs 4,500 pounds, but you're also talking about
6,700 pounds.
You're also talking about 4,500 pounds on top of it. So you're really talking somewhere around 9,000 pounds in the vehicle moving down the road. That's what you're really talking about.
Because it's a trailer and the way that pulls, it would be considered like two separate vehicles because it does have its own axle. It's actually a dual axle. So it would be like two cars following each other in that case. And it would actually, because it's only 4,500 pounds, it wouldn't be like a full-size pickup. I was mistaken. It'd actually be more like a sedan in weight. And because it does have its own single axle, it would be like a separate car. It would not be like 9,000 pounds any more than two cars following each other would be 9,000 pounds.
But the other problem here is that the cup that's applied for recognizes the potential of not 100 plants, but it's permitting 200 plants.
Mm-hmm.
So if this is approved, there's no reason why, you know, at some point in the future you could be doing 200 plants, which would be doubling the amount of water that you're trying to haul. We're already arguing about how much water this thing is going to need. By some estimates here, you're talking about, you know, not 240 gallons per trip, or even you're talking 600 gallons per trip. 4 trips now at 600 gallons.
Well, I think we can appreciate and respect the fact that he's actually hauling in water and he's not using a well or any other source from the residential community. And again, this is seasonal.
And like we said, even if, because this is the smallest, being a micro grower that the state offers as far as licensing goes, could he do 200? According to the state, he could, but that was not in his plan. You know, I mean, his plan is his plan. And honestly, even if we were to consider the excess traffic, then you would say that it would be as if, you know, 2 more cars were driving down that road a week, you know, above and beyond where we're at right now. And like I said, at 4,500 pounds, 4,700 pounds or whatever, that's your average sedan in size. That's not a large truck. That's not, you know, And I don't think anybody would ever limit how many people could visit someone on their road as far as, car traffic would go like that.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out to the rest of the commission here, the letter given to us by concerned neighbors of 62 South Fork Extension. They're talking about the potential here of 196 plants, and by their calculations of water, based on other information they've given here, that you're talking about 8,232 gallons or 68,500 pounds of water, 34 tons every week for 5 months over, let's just say, the kinds of roads that the county has out there.
With all due respect, I think those are more like algae farm calculations and not a 65 by 65 grow area that's seasonal and that's not year-round. If we're going to talk about the neighbors, again, with all due respect, I think that those calculations are, they're not based on fact. They're totally inflated. He has the facts, and they have businesses. You can see in the packet, those are their businesses. They have employees. Jim does not have employees. He is the only employee. He is hauling in water on his way home from work. He passes the bulk water station. So it's just another trip. So it's just interesting to me, and again, I say this with respect, that there's an algae farm, which we can only assume how much water that takes, but yet this is a seasonal grow. He's hauling in the water. We have calculations, and I just think that that needs to be, stated again and reiterated.
Okay, thank you. JJ's a water dude. What do you have to say, JJ?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The biggest problem I have with this project is that it is outdoors, and that emits a strong odor when the plants are mature. I mean, is there a possibility you could do something indoors? The last applicant we had here, the last case we had, they have a greenhouse that's 1,800 square feet that can accommodate, up to 200 plants. I mean, has he considered doing something indoors?
Yes, unfortunately, we had originally applied for a commercial greenhouse, but that's prohibited in the district, so that wasn't an option. However, there is no processing on site, and so the smell, it comes from more processing, and there's really, the outdoor, there's just not a lot of impact on that. I do believe there are ways to mediate if there is a smell, and I do know that Jim had some information on that he could share.
There are methods to remove 99% of the smell. I've looked into it. I'm not sure if it's very cost effective, but it is designed to mist a product into the air that oxidizes the smell, so that it basically disappears.
Yeah, I realize that greenhouses are not allowed in your area, but I'm sure that accessory buildings are allowed in your area. And it doesn't have to be a 4,000 square foot accessory building. You can build an 1,800 square foot accessory building and be enclosed. I mean, it's not a greenhouse, but if it's an accessory building, a large type garage, I'm sure you could do something like that. And the other thing is outdoors. I have a garden myself outdoors, and it's a challenge to have a garden. And I have some things here. It's like, the hot summer sun. I mean, that kills plants. And then the spring winds. I had my fruit trees blown down this last March with winds. And then you get, after the winds come, you get hailstorms. In May, we're susceptible to hail. The weather conditions always produce that cold in the atmosphere, and it turns to hail, and it destroys everything. I've had that happen almost on a yearly basis. And then the heavy rains. Once you get through the hail, then in August, September, we have the monsoons. I mean, that really impacts the plants. I mean, it saturates them. And then insect infestation. You're not going to use pesticides. It's going to be totally organic, but insects, once they see green plants, and I'm sure your plants are going to be very healthy, and you have insects. So for these reasons, I just don't think that having an outdoor growing area is very, cost effective. I mean, you think you might be able to do that, in that area, but I haven't been successful doing a lot of things outdoors with the weather. But anyway, and then, I saw the exhibits here, and you do have a greenhouse on your property. I don't know how large that greenhouse is, but there's a basketball court, and you have a greenhouse. I mean, I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know where you're going to start your plants. You have to start them indoors somewhere.
No. The plants will be started in the individual planters.
When you set those planters out?
Excuse me?
When would you plant them outdoors?
End of May.
End of May?
Yeah,
And how long does it take a plant to mature?
about 4 months.
4 months? Yeah. And the other thing is that, it just, the neighbors are very concerned about this thing. And, they had some very compelling arguments. I mean, and I don't know how you can deal with your neighbors and stuff. And then the number of people on that extension, South Fork Extension, imagine there's 10 or 20 people on that extension. It seems that the letters we received from the neighbors, they're very concerned about this. I mean, how are you going to deal with the neighbors?
All right. We also have multiple letters of support. And with regard to the neighbors, I mean, that's a matter of opinion. And, it is a conditional use in the area. And it is hard to live with contention and people that don't agree with what you're doing. But at the end of the day, it is a conditional use. And, and there are other businesses in the area. I mean, I would hope that it'd be a business-friendly area. I mean, but not everyone's gonna like what you do. But again, this is a conditional use. It's not visible from the road. There's no evidence that it impacts any values. It's not near a school. It's not within any other grow areas. I mean, it pretty much meets all the criteria.
Yeah, the other question I had is having to haul water for this operation. That is a difficult thing. You mentioned that Mr. Harris can haul water on his way home. How can you haul a water barrel on your truck, when you go to town and you have to bring it out and you fill it up and you go home? I mean, it seems that you need to be able to make a special trip to the filling bulk station at the penitentiary and then go back to your house. I mean, there's other people, contractors, that have 2,000 or 3,000 gallon containers that could fill up your cistern. They could do it once a week or once every 2 weeks. If you need 1,200 gallons a week, you could get a water hauler with a 4,000 gallon truck to fill up your cistern. You need a bigger cistern.
I'd be willing to do that, but my thought on that is that that's the additional weight of that water truck, which is, and then the additional water is, that's extremely heavy. And say, rainy day, muddy road, that would tend to do a lot more damage.
Well, I realize that, but they don't have to haul the water when it's a muddy day. I mean, every month you can have a delivery to your place. If you need 1,200 gallons a week, you could do one delivery, once a month. And I know people that have big containers that they have a water hauler bring them water, once a month or so, and then that they're done. I mean, that is possible.
Well, I would be happy to do that, just for the fact that I wouldn't have to do it. But my worry would be that I would get some pushback on the size of the vehicle.
Yeah. Well, I know you have a business in Santa Fe. I saw all the letters of support. I mean, you have a wonderful business, it seems. A lot of people support you, but they're not the people that live in that area. That's the biggest concern. You're an honorable man, you do good work, and the thing is, but they're not the neighbors in that area. You know, that's the biggest concern. Water hauling is a big part of your business. Without water, nothing would happen. And the thing is, the problem is it's outdoors. And that is not such a suitable way to grow anything. I mean, you have to take the chances with elements.
Yeah, the elements are a challenge. There's no question about it. I personally am willing to go and obtain the water through a method that is recommended.
Okay. You know, Mr. Chair, I've got a question for Jose. What is the possibility of building an accessory structure on Mr. Harris's property?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gonzalez, as per the ordinance, it defines, let me read it to you from section 10.22.3.3, a cannabis producer or cannabis producer micro business that cultivates cannabis plants indoors shall be treated the same as the following use: commercial greenhouse. So in this zoning district, under the San Marcos Overlay District, a commercial greenhouse, whether it's an existing building, or as we saw in the previous case, they have an existing building and they're using it, or they build a greenhouse, or they build a barn and use it as a greenhouse, they're still producing and growing cannabis within that structure. That's considered a commercial greenhouse. And again, in this overlay district, in the zoning district, within the San Marcos overlay, a commercial greenhouse is prohibited.
Okay, well, thank you very much. No further questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, JJ. Any other questions from Eric? Go ahead.
Thank you. I wonder if you could tell me, the packet is not really clear. Is Southwest Extension a county-maintained road, or is it a privately maintained road?
It is privately maintained.
And do you have a road use agreement? Do you and your neighbors have a road use agreement?
When it comes to road maintenance, I think our last, it was 2 years ago when we had the road maintained. Prior to that, I think was 6 years.
And thank you. And
And
so
it is an agreement, depending upon where you live on the road, what percentage of the bill is paid.
okay, and so the community as a whole makes the determination that the road needs to be maintained, and then depending on how much of the road you use, that's how much you have to chip in. And is that the way it works?
That's correct.
Great.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
And to my knowledge, it is not a recorded road maintenance agreement. It's just a agreement that they have.
It's an agreement between neighbors.
Exactly.
Yeah, I live in a road and we don't have that, and
Right.
so I haul gravel and
Yeah.
look for money. I wonder, do you or do your neighbors get your trash hauled? Is there trash hauling on your road?
There is a trash truck that does drive by.
So Ibarra or Capital
on the road.
or all the big ones?
Well, yeah, the larger trash truck. I personally do not use it.
Right. Right, I understand that, but in my road, where we do not have a road maintenance agreement, most of the heavy truck traffic lately has been either UPS or FedEx or Capital or Waste Management or Ibarra that come seemingly on different days, but once a week. I'm just trying to understand how the roads work where you are, and it sounds like the community has a system that seems to work, and some of the complaints from the neighbors were that this would unduly damage their road. And I don't know if there is any way to mitigate that between neighbors, but that's just my thought. The other question I had is, have you used the county bulk water station?
I have not used it to date, no.
Right. I think, there is, as we read the packet, there are widely varying numbers with regard to how much water these, and JJ, they're not plants, they're weeds, so it's a little bit different. But how much water these use. And so I'm wondering if there is a way to do two things, and I guess this is for you, Jose. Even though the state has a minimum 200 plant limitation, is the county able to impose a more strict limitation on the number of plants that might get around some of this discrepancy? Roger or Jose?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bo, this is a conditional use, so the Planning Commission can impose conditions on this further than what staff could.
Thank you. And as I think one of the draft conditions that staff has imposed is to provide the well usage on a monthly basis to verify that water is not being used for this growing operation. Would another condition, since you're going to be getting these reports, would another condition be a kind of a receipt, a printout from the bulk water station so that we can pin down the, I think the controls that you might have might go some of the way towards alleviating a few of the issues that the neighbors raise. So I'm just raising that as a potential for us to consider. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Any other questions? Carl?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So back to the water. I mean, this water is a big issue here. And you mentioned that you're going to be hauling the water in 600-gallon container. Is that correct? And so where did you get your calculations as far as how much water it takes to water 100 plants? I heard you throw out the number 100. That's probably your intent to grow, even though, as I understand it, this permit would allow up to 200. But where did you get your calculations for this 100 plants?
The planters, like I say, are 20-gallon containers, okay? They will be basically protected by water, so there will not be any evaporation through the soil. It'll only evaporate basically through the plant.
Okay.
And I figured that, per week, you would be looking at about 12 gallons per plant, or 2 gallons a day, roughly.
So if I understood you correctly, you're saying there's not going to be any surface area at all?
Limiting the surface area, yeah, because it's covered in plastic and just limiting the evaporation.
Okay. Well, the only thing that I can say is I did look up to see what type of sources I could find as far as usage of water and they basically, and I don't know how reliable these sources are, but, they're from a Marijuana Journal, Business Daily, from another one called Good Water. I don't know, there's 3 different sources, but they're all consistent, and they say 6 gallons of water per day for a growing season of a plant, and there's 4 months. If you're doing 100 plants, that's 600 gallons a day. And so 600 gallons a day is much more than what you're saying that you'll be bringing in.
Yes, are those plants in the ground or in pots?
These are, it doesn't specify. What it does say is outdoor is 6 gallons a day, indoor is about 2.8 gallons per day.
Yeah, that's one of the big reasons I don't want to plant in the ground, okay, is most of your water is wicking away.
But I'm having a hard time believing anything outside in this arid climate. We're at 10 or 12 or 15% humidity during the summer. There's going to be a lot of evaporation through everywhere. Even if it's in a plastic bag or basket, as that heats up, it's going to find vents for water for it to evaporate. It's unless you made it airtight, which probably is not good for the plant either. Would be my guess.
Yeah, that's correct. It does have to breathe, okay? But I have a feeling the plants that they may be describing there are fairly large for outdoor grows.
And I could, well, what I would imagine is a plant starts very young, and as it matures, there's a growing season. And it's consistent here. It's 4 months, like you mentioned, that the growing season was 4 months. So that's consistent. It's just the amount of water that's different here. And so just by my calculations here, you'd be needing to haul one of those things in every single day at 100 plants. So it wouldn't be twice a week or once a week. It would be much more than that. And so I have a hard time when I found 3 or 4 different sources that show that. And these guys, I mean, like I said, I really don't know how reputable they are, but they seem to be in the business as well.
Can I add to that real quick?
Please.
Because it says in rollitup.org, which is it basically explains how to grow in pots. A 20-gallon pot would use 2 to 2.5 gallons at the most per day in hot weather. And keep in mind, we still get, rain. We do, his growing season is going to be during the monsoon season also. It's going to, so those days, he's not going to be putting 2.5 gallons in a pot. And I also have a 50 square foot garden, and I've grown everything from pumpkins to, well, just about everything, tomatoes. And in a pot, the water will, I've done smart pots where it does keep a lot of the water in there. And if you were to put 5 gallons of water a day into every single day into a smart pot, I mean, there'd be a sure way to kill these plants very quickly. And keep in mind that it is a 4-month growing season. The most water is going to be used at the end of the grow season. In the beginning, you're going to be using a lot less water. And so those days, that cistern won't be used very much. When you take monsoon season into consideration, then you're also going to have plenty of days. If we look at this past year, I can tell you that in my garden, there were a lot of days I didn't have to water at all because of the fact that, we got a bit of rain. But when you calculate that by a 600-gallon water trip, and you take into consideration that all of his plants are going to be in pots, and that was explained, and it could even be conditioned because that's part of his plan, that it, 5 gallons of water in one of those 20-gallon planters would surely kill the plant, especially in its infancy. So I think we also have to remember that since he's going to be planting with seed in, May, that these aren't going to be mature plants come the end of May. They won't be mature plants until, you get into August, and in which case, when you get into August and July, we do get some rain then. So that will also ease a little bit of the water. But as far as picking it up and hauling it, that is something that, he's out there and bringing a trailer. If you've looked up Mr. Harris's business, he drives his pickup truck every day, and hooking up his trailer to it is really no big deal. And picking up the water and driving it home with him is really not something that would be a horrible thing for him. But I do know that he can get those receipts, and I know he already agreed to that, to show that that's where he's getting his water from. And the biggest purpose to that, I don't know if that was explained, is because the water coming from there has a better pH balance. So it doesn't behoove him to use it out of his well anyway, just because of the keeping the plants growing the way he wants them grown. So those things, I just wanted to make sure we're clear. And having, I'm an avid gardener myself, and so I'm very, very familiar with how much water we use when I do my certain plants potted.
Sure, and I can appreciate what you had to say about less water as they're early and stuff, but as far as the treating of water or the well water, I mean, any water can be treated to be used, and so, I mean, the idea that it's just, we're not gonna use this water because it's bad water, it can be treated, so.
Yeah, and that's why he wants to meter it, is to show and prove
Yeah.
that it'll be metered.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Steve?
So you just cited a source for the amount of water used in potted plants. Could you tell me that source again?
Yeah, it's called rollitup.org.
Is that the only source that you can point to that supports your water usage contention?
Well, yeah, because I use that because that does apply to the project completely for cannabis growth in 20-gallon pots.
That's the one you have?
Yeah, and that's exactly the way he's doing it. So it's specific to that, even taking the weather and such into consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. This is a public hearing, so I'm gonna open it up to the public. Anybody that wishes to speak in favor or against this project, please come forward and get yourself sworn in. Anybody coming up to speak on behalf or against this project?
We have a presentation, slide presentation to give. I can do that now.
Okay, how long is it gonna take?
It's 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yes. I will, but I just want to make sure that my presentation is up. And it's not advancing. I'm not sure if the AV guy is there, but my name is Douglas Spear. I live at 100 Pine West, and I am under oath.
Thank you, Steve.
There we are. Okay. So I just need to preface one thing, and that is that our numbers in this presentation were based off of what we were hearing at the hearing in December, which was 65 plants. So I don't have 100 plant totals in this, but I think you'll be able to extrapolate. All right, let's see here. I'm not getting an advance. Oh, there it is. Okay. I'm going to go back there. Okay. Good afternoon. First, I want to thank you all for allowing us to present our response to the LLR Growers application for a conditional use permit. I represent the neighbors, a concerned group of 42 residents who own the 5 properties contiguous to the applicant's site at 62 South Fork Extension, as well as 10 properties on Pine West and Sculpture Lane, along with another 16 concerned property owners and residents in the surrounding neighborhoods for a total of 31 properties. Our response to the recommended order and a full document in the case file will address the following elements: CUP criteria, our concerns CUP criteria not met, and the cannabis ordinance itself. The heart of the cannabis, of a conditional use permit, as defined in the SLDC, are 6 criteria that must be met in order to gain approval. In the RO, staff states that the applicant has satisfied the CUP approval criteria as well as the applicable SLDC design standards. In fact, staff only asserts the CUP criteria are met. We will specifically show that the highlighted areas are completely neglected by staff, and the recommended order ignores or downplays the concerns we raised at the December hearing. We have 4: water and road use, security, odor, and real estate and property values. We'll look at each one in turn. The first area of concern that we would like to address relates to the amount of water required to grow cannabis, a hot topic today. A well-documented rule of thumb finds that a single cannabis plant requires 6 gallons of water per day, or 42 gallons per week, according to the Brookings Institution. Growing season is typically 18 to 24 weeks long. So at an average of 20 weeks, each plant requires approximately 840 gallons of water to reach maturity. I think I missed a cue. Okay. This represents significantly more water than the applicant has stated he will need. The applicant states he will be trucking 240 gallons. Again, I apologize. Those were numbers we heard before. 240 gallons of water per week, twice a week to the site. But 480 gallons of water per week will only sustain 11.5 plants. The applicant states he plans on growing 65 plants. This would require 2,730 gallons per week, or 11 trips every 7 days. That's a significant increase in water and the trips required. Unfortunately, it gets more concerning. The Santa Fe County Cannabis Ordinance would allow the applicant to grow as many as 200 plants. The applicant's site could grow as many as 196 at a time. That would require over 8,000 gallons of water per week. Impossible to haul at 240 gallons per load. It's much more likely a 2,000-gallon water truck would be required 4 times a week. The neighbors share great concerns about the overall amount of water required to grow cannabis in a climate that's becoming warmer and drier by the year. Staff's response indicates that we shouldn't worry because the applicant can't use his domestic well. He must truck in the water. Problem solved. The fact is, domestic well use is prohibited in the cannabis ordinance. It's a bit disingenuous to claim a requirement of law as a reason to approve a conditional use permit. If all one had to do was follow the technical requirements laid out in the cannabis ordinance, what value would requiring a CUP have? The value is that the CUP speaks to the quality of life in the community. It's not about meeting the requirements of the ordinance. However, the solution staff presents raises questions about road use and trucking water, which we will look at next. South Fork Extension started as a ranch road and then became an access road for new property owners in the 1970s. It was not built to any construction standard. Rather, it was simply carved out of the earth and graveled. The legal responsibility to maintain the road falls on the property owners, and repair and maintenance is spotty until travel is compromised. In 2022, for the first time in 6 years, property owners along South Fork Extension raised $11,000 to add race course and grade the road where necessary. If South Fork Extension was a county road and met the specifications for a rural cul-de-sac, perhaps it could withstand the delivery of water to support the applicant's cannabis farm. At least it would be the responsibility of the county to repair the damage caused by trucking 11 tons of water weekly to the site. Staff replied to our concern in the RO that Santa Fe County Public Works reviewed the application and supports the development. Remember, we demonstrated that the amount of water required is 5.5 times greater than the applicant suggests he will need. It's likely Public Works only accounted for the amount of water that he claimed he would use in the application. Had they known the true amount of water required and surveyed the road, would they have supported the development? We think not. Don't forget that once approved, if the applicant chooses to grow 196 plants, the cannabis farm could need 3 times this amount of water. South Fork Extension is not engineered to carry this much weight at this frequency. It's too narrow and does not have enough of a base to withstand this type of wear and tear. All the benefits and profits of what is essentially a commercial enterprise accrues to the owner, while the neighbors who oppose it are required by law to pay for the upkeep. This is entirely inconsistent with the spirit and intent of the SLDC and harms the quality of life in the community that the conditional use permit seeks to preserve. The recommended order downplayed our second concern around security, its implementation, and crime. Staff claim the fence around the grow supports the cup, but fencing is a requirement of state law. Staff says the motion detector lights and SLDC lighting standards eliminate our concerns about light at night, but conveniently overlooks the issue of repeated false activations. Illuminating a 65 by 65 foot area requires a lot of light, within standard or not. Additionally, state law requires that any entry point must have enough light for cameras to record any activity within 20 feet of the gate or entry. The hearing officer suggested that our concern about crime is speculative. If cannabis-related crime is only speculative, why do both state and county cannabis ordinances specifically call out the risk of theft and require security measures such as fencing and cameras? We have supplied journalistic documentation of crimes related to grow areas across the country. It's not speculative to believe an increase in crime is very likely because of a cannabis farm in this neighborhood. In fact, it's just prudent. Any increase in crime in our community related to this grow is a failure to protect the health, safety, and general welfare. Our third concern focuses on odor from the cannabis. The hearing officer again suggested our concern about odor emanating from the cannabis farm is speculative and without evidence. The county cannabis ordinance preempts this position by stating as fact, cannabis cultivation, production, and manufacturing creates strong odors, which some describe as a dead skunk stench. Documentation in the case file cites significant cannabis odor issues near grow sites. It's impossible to provide evidence that odor is a problem at this site when it doesn't even exist yet. But cannabis odor is not a matter of speculation. The neighbors don't want their air spoiled by the presence of a cannabis grow. Our final concern addresses the impact on real estate sales and property values. The hearing officer states we provided no evidence that cultivation would deter potential buyers in the site's vicinity. Unfortunately, we have that evidence. When a potential buyer heard about the cannabis application, they halted negotiations on a contiguous property for sale and have since stated that if the application is approved, they will withdraw their offer. We also provided documentation that shows in some areas property values decrease between $20 to $40 per square foot for properties near a cannabis grow. Loss of property value or the ability to sell your property is not in keeping with the spirit and values of the SLDC. Our concerns were incorrectly addressed or dismissed out of hand. We maintain the applicant fails to meet the CUP criteria as we have demonstrated. Our health and safety and general welfare will be at risk. Our roads will be congested from increased wear. We face potential for danger because of crime associated with cannabis operations. Our odor-free air will be interfered with. Interference with improvements impacts both our road and nearby devalued properties. These are the findings of fact which support the conclusion that the CUP does not meet the criteria in the SLDC. However, if our arguments do not persuade you on the merits, there is one more issue we must discuss. The Santa Fe County Cannabis Ordinance clearly states nothing in this section shall preclude different cannabis regulations from being adopted for community district overlays. The county commissioners recognized the importance of the community overlays and understood that those communities may want to adopt code parameters different from the county. Santa Fe County Planning is just starting to reach out to the community overlays. In an email exchange with Robert Griego at Planning, he said they will be surveying the district overlays in the near future. However, if a CUP were approved before the district overlay rules are in place, it would be allowed as a non-conforming use. This matter is too important to allow grandfather cannabis operations. It's our opinion All cannabis conditional use permit applications in the overlay district should be suspended in the county until overlay districts have a chance to determine the cannabis rules they want in their communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you done? Are you complete?
Yes, I'm finished.
Okay, is there anybody else out there that wants to, thank you, sir. Is there anybody else out there that wants to speak for or against this?
I do. My name is Carrie Hecker. I live at 20 Pine West, and I have concerns about the well usage. The applicant is supposed to not use the domestic well water. He has to have a meter on his well, but we're wondering who will be responsible for reading and keeping track of the well water meters, and is the county going to regularly examine his well meter to make sure that he's in compliance? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else out there want to speak on behalf or against this project, please come forward and state your name.
Yes, I do. Nicholas Petrovic, 58 South Fork Extension. My folks actually own the property adjacent to the proposed cannabis site. And I will be speaking on their part, but I will be speaking myself to clarify the record here. Apogee Spirulina, Spirulicious Foods, which were brought up as the algae farm right next to the location of where the proposed cannabis farm wants to be located. My farm is not located there. The only thing that's located there are my LLCs. So there is no algae farm right next to 62. Okay. All right. Yeah, my folks retired here in their peaceful community to get away from light, noise, crime, and now odor. With the proposal for a cannabis farm to be located right next to our property, all that we work for and cherish will disappear. As this will be an outdoor grow in which the odor will disperse throughout the area compared to an indoor grow in which they utilize water heater-sized carbon filters to eliminate odors. The applicant has none of this. Unfortunately, neither the applicant nor staff have addressed our concerns. So just move on, nothing to see here response. Really? It was noted in the recommended order after the December hearing that the issue of odor was raised by those of us who came to testify against the application. The hearing officer dismissed our concern because we had no proof. As you heard in our opening statement, both state and county ordinances unequivocally say the odor associated with cannabis is a problem. Cannabis odor is well documented. We believe it is evasive to say we have no proof. Your proof is every time you smelled pot, went out of concert, or just walking down the street, or walking by a dispensary. If anyone tells you there is no proof, they aren't a reliable witness. As our property is due east of the proposed grow site, we'll be subjected to the skunk odor for at least 5 months of the year as the winds blow from west to east. Being due east of it, we're going to be getting the brunt of it. According to staff, there is no issue. So please tell us what recourse we will have when it does become an issue. Is the county going to come in and revoke the cup after the neighbors start complaining about the order? Or is it the New Mexico Cannabis Control Division? Or will nothing happen? And why should we be the test bed for cannabis regulations that have not been properly thought out? So far, the whole process has been less than transparent. At the end of the day, everyone, my folks have to live next to this place. And I'm sure you guys would not be happy living next to a pot farm and having to smell it for several months out of the year. Anyway, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else out there want to speak on behalf of this project or against it? Please come forward.
I do. My name is Richard Von Kanel. My address is 36 Pine West. That's about a quarter mile due north of Mr. Harris's property, the proposed cannabis grow area. He's on a ridge to the south, we're on a ridge to the north, so we have a clear line of sight. And given that the proposed grow area is outdoors, the 8 security lights connected to motion sensors will likely all be in our view at night. We live in a rural area where coyotes, owls, dogs, and mountain lions regularly travel at night. From my research, any of these would be large enough to trigger security lights. Regarding the comment Doug Spears made about community overlays, there is some indication that the planning department's beginning to roll out their plan for community overlays to determine the cannabis zoning rules for their communities. It's very possible that some of these overlays may want to enact different zoning rules. The county commissioners went out of their way to include language about community overlays in the cannabis ordinance. Granting a conditional use permit at this time is putting the cart before the horse, because the Santa Fe Overlay District, or San Marcos, excuse me, has not been given time to respond to recent changes in the law regarding cannabis use and production. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else out there?
Yes. Yes, I do. Shirley Vogt Spear. I'm at 100 Pine West. So I have 2 areas of concern that I wanted to talk about, and one is security. So from what I understand, the applicant said he's the only employee and he will be monitoring. So who monitors when he goes to work? Who monitors when he goes to sleep or to the grocery store? Also, we know that he's going to have lights out there, and I assume, I don't know if there's an alarm that, or is it just the light that'll go off that would wake him up in the middle of the night? What happens during the day? How do you know if kids have come in and cut the fence and are in, you know, because they can smell it, they may not see it, but they're going to know that it's there. There's lots of kids in the area who like to get into trouble. And so then what happens is, what I don't understand is, what happens when the lights go off, or the alarms go off, whatever, what's the process? So does the applicant go out himself with a shotgun? Or does he pick up the phone and call the sheriff? And the sheriff's department now is going to get calls because a coyote ran through and set off the motion detectors? I mean, that's just not clear to us. So we do have concerns about that, or I do. Also, I have a concern about the San Marcos Overlay District not having a chance to talk about and make revisions to our plan. I volunteered and worked with the planning committee in San Marcos, spent many months working with Lucy and Robert Griego and trying to come up with a plan that helped our community and recognized what we wanted to look and feel like. And I just spent a lot of time on that. And now I understand the ordinance was written, but with the commissioner saying that the overlays have a say-so, but yet we don't. There has been no meeting. Tonight, I understand Robert Griego is meeting with the San Marcos Association to talk about kicking that off. So, and I think that's great. That needs to be done. But all I'm asking is, could we have a moratorium till the community has a chance to be canvassed, to be polled, to meet, to decide what they want? I know the county has put moratoriums on many things in the past. I don't see why this wouldn't be different. Have the moratorium, then see what the community overlay is going to look like, give the community a chance to make that decision, and then decide, and then issue the permit. I don't understand what the urgency is to get the permits issued before that happens. It just seems unfair, especially to the community where members like myself had spent a lot of time volunteering, trying to do the right thing, and then we really don't get the chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else out there that wants to speak? Please come forward.
Yes. Gregory Petrovich, 58 South Fork Extension. My concern is the road. You saw the ruts, and they redid the road 2 years ago, but the ruts are starting to come back again. And one thing they didn't mention was during the season, we have the monsoon, and that road really can get torn up. And we see it with our FedEx deliveries, UPS truck drivers who bonsai through there and just tear it up. So when you have and they're not as heavy as the water tankers or whatever they propose to bring through there. And also one other thing on that road that nobody mentioned, there's 2 tight 90-degree corners. And when people go around there, the road gets shifted. And again, we put gravel there from time to time to upkeep it, but sometimes it's not that easy. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to come speak?
Roe Painter, 73 South Fork Extension. Roe Painter. Let me take this off. Roe Painter. I live catty corner to Mr. Harris's property. Mine's catty corner to the west, kind of northwest. This issue is about our community, especially those who live on South Fork Extension and Pine West. It is noticeable that the applicant has not shown any support from his neighbors. Neither those who live next to him or those who live on the next road have stood up in support of the applicant. Those of us most affected are overwhelmingly opposed. Many of us who signed the document we submitted in rebuttal of the recommended order were not able to come here to testify in person, but 41 residents representing 31 properties agreed to support our position that a conditional use permit should not be approved in this situation. We are not opposed to the cannabis ordinance in general. There are many places in the county where growing cannabis would be appropriate and should be approved, but not at this location. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else out there want to speak on behalf or against this project?
My name is Ruth Dobbins. I live at 86 South Fork Extension at the very end of the road. And I just want to briefly mention that I have a very vivid experience of value loss of property because of this application. I was in the process of selling a piece of vacant land that is sandwiched between my home property at 86 and Mr. Harris's property. And I was about to sign the sale at the end of last year. And when it became known that this cannabis application was pending, my buyer withdrew his offer and the sale collapsed. So meanwhile, I had to start the whole process all over again, and I'm finding too that upon revealing that this is a possibility of happening, that any other buyer is going to ask for price reductions just because of that possibility. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else out there? I think that's pretty much everybody, looks like. Okay. Anybody online, Jose?
Mr. Chair, yes, we have Samantha Decker would like to speak, so I will unmute you. Yeah.
Ms. Decker, could I swear you in?
I'm not getting it unmuted. Samantha, can you unmute yourself on your end? Hang on a second. We can get Matt out here.
Oh, nothing.
Samantha, please wait until we figure out your audio. Please hold off. Thank you.
Try again, please.
Samantha, I think you're unmuted. So go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, I need to swear
Great.
you in. You swear or
Sure.
affirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth.
Shh. Boys, no. Bad dogs.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth?
Yes.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Samantha Decker. I'm not a resident of the state of New Mexico. I am a resident of Vermont. And I live at 883 Smead Road, Wardsboro, Vermont.
Okay, please proceed.
So I understand that I'm not a resident there. However, I have multiple friends and family in the state. And I do understand the water issue and residential issues. I'm involved in real estate myself in Vermont, and so we firmly believe in environmental concerns and whatnot, and preserving this state and the integrity of the state and the resources. However, through the past couple hours, I personally have not seen so much of a compelling argument, other than neighbors who are quote unquote maybe a little old school and are deterred by this scent. But however, as you guys stated, this scent only really happens during harvesting time. And I also was listening to the water issue and the weight on the roads. And in Vermont as well, we do have issues with weight on the roads and dirt roads and roads that are not as well maintained as state highways and whatnot. But it seems that every grower that has presented their argument with you has had a valid point, which they stated that they don't really have a need for using your roads as much as you guys have said that they need to because of rainwater and the amount of growing time it takes. I just feel like scientifically, and if anyone, in your position of power, with all due respect, I feel like if anyone had kind of a degree or a background in horticulture, you may be a little more aware of the advantages, that you would give the state more than the disadvantages. It just seems that this is kind of an old school way of thinking, with all due respect, so to speak. And people aren't really kind of adapting to the times. And there is a very, very, very wide plethora of medical use for it and recreational. And I understand that New Mexico is like one of the highest states of DWIs. And I feel that if this were reversed, that you would find a significant change in that. But that's all irrelevant. I think what we got to stick to the laws. I think that people in authority right now are trying to find loopholes and saying, oh, the weight of the trucks with the water. And you're really not taking into account of what these growers are actually saying. And it does not require the amount of water that you were saying it takes to haul and this and that. I think that it's just an old school way of thinking. And I think that, honestly, you know what? I'm very disappointed that there's only 11 people on here right now, because I don't think this was very well advertised. And I think that this meeting maybe was not well advertised because there are people in power, whether you're in power or a landowner who has significant residents, I guess. I think that there's just too much people in power that are having say over something that's so widely pronounced. Thoughts?
We're just here to listen to your input. We don't have anything to say on this right now. We're just taking the public input.
So you're saying that these growers are taking too much water, right? They're taking too much water, right? Excuse yourself, boys. Walter, Winnie, no. You're saying that these growers are taking too much water, but these growers are trying to explain to you that they're actually not. They're actually not. Because you're saying you're breaking down like the yearly cost, but they're only growing for 3 to 4 months a year, like depending on the season. And upon that, you can collect rainwater in New Mexico. So they're basically saying that they're making a minimal impact on the water situation, which is that's what your biggest situation is, the water. Am I right?
That's one of the situations. But
And the other situation is the zoning, correct?
There's the roads and the zoning. Those are all some of the other issues as well.
So do you think, I have a question, do you think that if you guys maybe fix the roads, that it could be, isn't it a kind of a state thing to fix the roads or a town thing to fix the roads? And do you think that maybe this kind of operation would give revenue to fix the roads, to make this kind of operation more, like, a little more viable? Or are we all just, excuse me?
That's not an issue on this project. This is a private road, but we're right here. We're just here to obtain information. Do you have any more information to add to this? So we can.
Wait, no, I don't. No, I've got more questions. So this is how many people
this isn't
are.
a question session. This is just a public input. We don't need to answer your questions. Just give us your input, and we'll
You don't
continue
need
from
to
here.
answer my question. My public input is that the authority is having way too much authority over these private roads. And even though, say, there's like maybe 2 or 3 homeowners to this road, what are their ages? Are they keeping up with the times? Do they have their best interest for themselves, or is there a little bit of eminent domain here for the county?
That's not for us to say here. We're we're the planning commission. We're just taking up.
I think that's a very good question I just asked. I think that's a very good question.
We're not here to debate.
Is it eminent domain? Is it eminent domain? Or is it just the personal preference?
Jose, can we close this off? Okay, thank you for your input, ma'am. We are done over here today. We're going to continue with the process. Okay, is there anybody else out there that wants to speak?
Mr. Chair, there is a Chris Andra would like to speak.
Okay, Chris, please come forward.
This is Chris Andre. I was wondering if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Can I swear you in?
Yes, absolutely, please. Yes.
Swear from the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth.
Yes, it is.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Chris Andre. My wife and I, Ann Andre, we own the property, which is named parcel 6008353, which is adjacent and directly to the north of Mr. Harris's property. We bought this property in 2005, trying to realize the dream of being able to retire to New Mexico and live on that gorgeous property that we have. And I just wanted to bring back the issue of the effort that the 42 members of the neighborhood have put together. We have spent considerable amount of time trying to find evidence since, at the hearing on December 8th, we were told that most of our input was speculative, which at that time was very qualitative, not necessarily quantitative. But we have spent a great deal of effort trying to research this in many publications from many sources. We have submitted 3 separate letters documenting this. One of them was a 5-page letter regarding safety and criminality risk. Another 3-page letter regarding water use and road erosion, which we have based it on the Brookings Institute information regarding growing marijuana plants outside, and didn't even take into account the fact that it is the desert. And we also regarding odor and the quality of air. All that information is available in your packet, 11 pages of documented research. And also, we have submitted the 11-page response to the recommended order. I think it's very important to realize that, especially if we look at the criminality potential, it is a very difficult situation. The place is isolated. There's no police around or something like that. If something happens, people are likely to not get help for a while. Yes, we do understand that a lot of the people there are not necessarily all that young, which makes them even more vulnerable to any kind of criminal activity or even the threat of it. I think one important question to ask the people who live there is, are you feeling safe with even a micro business of a cannabis farm next door? How do you go home with the same amount of security or not? And I think that's important in the quality of life that people have, and I think it's important in the attitude that people have in terms of how they live and the reason why they live there. What are their plans for the future? Do some of those properties imply a security for retirement or maybe an income for retirement? What happens if the value of their property goes down? How is that going to affect their lives? So if the conditional usage permit is something that's supposed to be mindful of people's quality of life, I think those things should definitely be taken into account before a permit should be issued. And one more question, if you guys don't mind, are there any insurance requirement for growing marijuana in a residential, even rural residential area? Are there any insurance requirement for that? And if there are none, should there be some? And once again, I think San Marcos Overlay should have its say about how it wants to figure out its future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, Jose, can you answer that question? Is there any kind of insurance requirements?
Mr. Chair, I do not know that there would be any other insurance requirements since it is legal to grow. Yeah, the state might have something.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, we do have a Jesse Gale that wants to speak.
Okay, Jesse, please come forward and get sworn in.
See if we could get her unmuted.
Me start my video.
Bye, Jesse.
Hi. Hello.
You
Hi.
confirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth.
Okay.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jesse Gale. I've been a resident here for 10 years, 1120 Agua Fria.
Okay, please.
Santa Fe, New Mexico. Okay, sorry. I'm definitely the youngest person you've seen probably tonight. And I'm very nervous. It's actually my first town hall meeting, so bear with me. This last, the second Lori Lindsay's you know, that came home to me, and she was extremely well spoken. Sorry, I'm a little nervous, but as a younger person in this community and with the times we are having, I stayed with this last case kind of skeptical to see what would happen, you know, because this is completely different than her situation. She's commercial, we're dealing with residential property. But I grew up with master gardeners, my parents, and as a result, I became kind of one myself. So I've jotted down a couple of notes here, and I guess I want to start with the water issue first. When a plant is established, and, you know, learning curve out here in the desert is gardening. And over the course of 10 years, I've really learned that learning curve. And one of them being, once a plant is established, and I learned from the best. Everyone knows Bob Pennington. I worked for him for years at the Aquafree Nursery. He is a master, and he's taught me a lot. And once a plant is established, especially in a container, you only have to water that plant maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And we're not considering the monsoon season at all. So first there's that. Water when you're smart and you know what you're doing. And becoming a gardener is an extremely arduous, almost a lifetime of knowledge, experience. And I'm still learning to this day, 35 years later. Like, you're learning every year. You learn how to make your process better, more efficient. So therefore, being under one of the most master gardeners our county offers, Bob Pennington, at the Aquafree Nursery, I've been taught once you establish a garden, 2-3 times a week, maybe even less, depending on our circumstances. I also want to bring into, you know, mind's eye the fact that we all have our micro gardens. We love gardening here in New Mexico. We love being self-sufficient. Here in the city, I have a micro garden. I use water. And trust me, I use water. I grew 10 pumpkins in my little plot I have here on Aquafree, and tons of zinnias, corn. I'm using as much water as anybody else is to create their own personal paradise. I've also been a landscaper in this town. I also worked for Paul Allen's estate, where George O'Keeffe used to live, up on Old Santa Fe Trail. We use so much water, almost a criminal amount when I worked there. You know, coronavirus, I got laid off, whatever, that's fine. But we use an incredible amount of water there. That was probably close to criminal. We want to talk about water usage. Let's think about the estates up on Old Santa Fe Trail, or on, I'm in a Mesethorpe, Las Campañas. Like, they use tons of water for their grasses and their gardens to be gorgeous. So we're talking about a person that wants to do something legal. Okay? And then how are you separating them from wealth that just use water in absurd amounts, okay, to just make a grass grow that they can lay on with a lawn chair or show off to their rich friends? That is unfair. Their grass and their beautiful gardens, which I loved working at that estate. I really, truly did. I got to master garden with tulip bulbs and all sorts of stuff. Like, the limits were endless. But the amount of water, the irrigation system on that piece of land was ridiculous. The amount of water used, like, I almost started to hate my job because of the elite getting to use so much water just to make their place pretty for visitors that they didn't even live on. These people, in the 2 years I worked there, never even visited. So what? We're watering their gardens. We're doing all these things to make their estates gorgeous for what? So nobody can even put their feet upon them? So that is my first thing. You're talking about this guy, okay, ruining the road. I have a boyfriend that lives in Cerritos. I know how bad the roads get. I drive my car up and down them every, weekend or so. But then you have to, I'm going to assume this guy has a more or less pretty flat road. Can we talk about the people that own horses? Horses weigh 1,000 pounds on average. These people that own horses that have way more money than me, with 4 or 5 horses in a trailer, okay, 5,000 pounds in and out. Can we talk about their hay and all the amount of food and water that they're spending to bring out to haul to their land? Can we talk about them? Why is it that now that this thing went legal, okay, and people are trying to earn an honest living, are being subjected to this ridiculous abuse from their neighbors? Horses smell. Can we talk about that? And also, they weigh a lot, and their trailers damage the roads. So do we need to bring horse trailer and carriage into play? I mean, I think that maybe that is an equal argument here. And also, people growing like their micro farms, is that regulated? Is regulating how much food people can grow on their property, is that a regulation now? Should we take that into effect? I go by Highway 14, that main water haul, almost every weekend to go see my boyfriend out in Cerritos, and people are filling up their tanks all the time and hauling them. I think if this man, like you said, and I really respect what you said, if he can obtain a certificate or a piece of paper documenting his water usage, and maybe that's in your contract. I don't know how this works. Again, I'm 35. It's the first time I ever spoke in public in my entire life. But I believe if he can maintain an honest contract with you guys where he says, look, this is what I'm doing, and, water catchment, whatever he needs to do to provide you the information that he is not stepping over his means, that he should be allowed to do that. Why is it that we can allow people to haul as much water for their horses and their gardens, just like I do here in this city, and I pay for it too? Why can't he do the same? Okay, so that's sorry, I'm a little heated.
Okay, please try and move up a little bit. We're trying to get this meeting finished. Please try and speed up a little bit.
Okay, yeah, I know, but I want to bring up the fact that I used to live in Northern California years ago. And I understand these older people in your room right now they haven't been exposed to very much. But when I lived in Northern California and things were still illegal in terms of growing marijuana, it was very dangerous. People held guns. People went missing. When you make things legal, you create a safer environment for people to do what they want to do in a healthy and safe way. There's no way that our county is going to let gangsters come in. And on top of that, they're growing their own crap, black market. And actually, as a person that knows the industry well, the legalization of marijuana in this state has made it safer and actually has killed the black market. So I don't see why this is an issue. It's creating jobs for people, just like it would on any farm, strawberry farm, corn farm. You're creating jobs. You're making it safer for people. My last argument is that, I think I said it all. You're creating jobs. If this man can maybe talk to his neighbors even and be like, I will gravel the road once a year, I don't see why you're denying this man his right. If he can prove his documents of paying for his water and keeping it under control, just like all the horse people do, and everyone else growing gardens, he's creating jobs for people to help him, okay? He can prove to help the road maintain itself. I wish the horse trailers would do that because they damage the roads greatly. And he's creating a safer place for everyone to live in. People will go back to being illegal. Do
Okay,
you
ma'am,
not
we
understand?
okay, let's cut it right here. We haven't denied or approved anything yet. So
I
we're
know,
gonna go
I'm
to the next
sorry.
person. Thank
I'm
you for your
very sorry,
time.
I'm just
Okay, thank you very much.
nervous.
Jose, who's next?
We have a previous speaker who already spoke with their hand up. Is there anybody else out there who wants to speak?
Only new speakers now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't see anyone else that wants to speak, sir.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Hereby closed. Okay, what is the pleasure of staff discussion, motions? What do you guys want to do?
Yeah, can I?
Wendy?
One of the things that I have a concern with, and I think it's, the more that we hear these cannabis farms come in, is the difference between a small farm and a large farm. When we're getting numbers thrown at us about water, about odor, about property values, and I've done some research and looked up about odor to see, what would be the difference. Like if you have a small farm compared to, a large, several acre type farm. And some states have different setbacks for small versus large farms. So, how do we distinguish when we're getting information like they're saying the Brookings Institute? Well, did they look at small farms or are they looking at large commercial farms? That's not clear to me. So, I don't know. I haven't walked through a pot farm. I don't know what it smells like. I don't know how a small, little plot would be compared to several acres. So I think there's a big difference in the information that we get in how we compare it.
Thank you, Wendy. Point taken. Anybody else?
Mr. Chair.
AJ.
I had a question for staff. I heard several people mention about that they started to upgrade the San Marcos overlay, and they started that in right before COVID started, and they delayed that during the COVID period for 2 years. It was delayed, and I guess tonight Robert Grego is meeting with some of the San Marcos residents to start reviewing the overlay plan. So, what do you have to say about that, Jose? Might this change in a new overlay plan, or what do you think?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gonzalez, I think the information that you're receiving is accurate as far as Mr. Griego starting to pick up the pace with respect to working on the San Marcos overlay again. I think it's been identified as a priority, and as the ordinance says, communities through their overlay districts can impose more strict or stringent restrictions and guidelines. It's hard to give you or give the commission a good sense of what kind of time frame we might be looking at for having a new overlay provision, an ordinance passed, but I do think that it has become a priority just in the past month.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, JJ. Jose, I have another question. I think I saw something in the packet where they're proposing a 6 to 8 foot high fence or something. And I guess if that's the case, if it's 6 feet or less, they don't need a permit. But if it's going to be 8 feet, that's another variance, isn't it? Or just a permit?
Mr. Chair, they could go up to 8 feet with a permit. Well, any commercial actually needs a permit for fence or wall. So they would just get a permit for the fence, and
So they wouldn't need a variance for the fence.
They wouldn't need a variance until they'd go over 8 feet.
Okay, thank you. Okay, commissioners, anything else here? Any motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Steve?
It's this is a difficult case in a lot of ways because some of the commenters that we've had, some of the people testifying we've had, seem to think that this is all about whether you're in favor of marijuana or not in favor of marijuana, and that's not the case at all. I don't think that's what's really being argued here. It really, to me, has more to do with the neighborhood. We've heard other cases where what seems to be a okay thing that just drives all the neighbors nuts. It would have been a lot better for me, if two things would have happened. One, there would have been more dialogue between the applicant and the neighbors. And secondly, there's this argument about how much is the water usage. We have numbers that we're working with here that, as my fellow commissioners pointed out, well, what is that about? A 1,000-acre farm? Is that about Illinois? Is that about California? Or is it about New Mexico? And here the applicant, on the other hand, is saying, no, you can't really apply that to us because we're growing it we're putting this in pots, and it's going to be entirely different. But on the other hand, we don't have any evidence before us, real evidence from any kind of recognized authority on water usage for plants being grown in pots. I looked up this rollit.org site, and I didn't see a whole lot of authoritative information there either. So that's a problem. We're trying to weigh not so much the water usage, as another person that testified was talking about, but we're really talking about the problem here seems to be the wear and tear on the road to move this water from where it is to where it needs to be. So those, to me, are some of the complicating factors here. And I just wanted to make that clear in the public record that we're not talking about being pro or con or old style, new style views of marijuana. We're not talking about that. It really comes down to, what is the impact on this access corridor, and what is the impact to the neighborhood? Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anybody else? Do I see a motion or anybody? No, the public hearing's already closed. Thank you. We're trying to make our decision. Okay, no one's gonna make a motion. I'll make a motion. I make a motion for approval of case 22-5210 with the conditions, and also with another addition of up to 100 plants. I'll just throw that out there.
I'll second it.
Okay, there's a motion on the board, and it's been seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Wait. What? Did you have?
I wonder if I could amend the motion. Is it too late to do that?
I would accept it.
To the chair.
I would accept it. I mean,
I would also like to amend that in addition to the monthly well reporting that is to be provided to the county, that monthly receipts from the bulk water station, and I don't know how the system works, but I believe that there is a statement, you have an account, and there's a statement, so a statement that, if it's technically possible, that would capture all purchases by the buyer, be also reported along with that. Does that make sense?
I would accept that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you.
Okay, let's take a vote. Can we take a roll call?
Chair Gonzalez.
Yes.
AJ Gonzalez.
No.
Eric Obo.
Yes.
Wendy Perard.
Yes.
Maria Serna. Yes. Carl Trujillo.
No.
Steve Krenz.
No.
4-3, the motion passes.
Okay. So the motion passes. Thank you very much. With the amendments. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can we have that final motion repeated by the recorder?
Motion with the friendly amendments?
Yes,
I
please.
understand it. See you guys later. Motion to approve with conditions, plus a condition that the, not to exceed 100 plants, and that there be monthly receipts submitted along with the well report.
Right, thank you.
Okay, let's continue. Petitions from the floor. Please come up. Oh, Commissioner. How's it going there, Mr. Green?
Great,
Commissioner
Mr.
Green?
Chairman. Thank you for this. My name is Justin Green. Pardon me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for inviting me here as a member of the County Commission. Thank you. I want to thank you guys for doing the work you do. It's not easy sitting up there. It's comfortable. Nice spot up there. That's my chair. So thank you very much. So, but thank you very much for your service. I really appreciate what you do. I served on the on the city's planning commission for about 3 years, and so I know what the job that you're doing is important and good public service. I have 3 things that I want to sort of introduce myself to you all, but 3 things that I want to bring into your attention in an effort to start to look ahead and give a little bit of encouragement to how we work with our neighbors here. First, I would like to encourage you all to have a joint meeting with the city's planning commission so you can start to sort of understand what some of the issues that they're facing and maybe get a presentation from their planning department, and maybe our planning department could give a presentation to their planning commission. And so there would be a little bit of this coordination across the lines, because the lines are relatively arbitrary at the end of the day these days. Second, please be conscious of the loads that you might be bearing on jurisdictions outside of your control, such as things that are near other communities, whether it's Espanola or the city of Santa Fe or Edgewood. Please consult as much as you can with those communities, whether it's with fire issues, recreational facility issues. There's loads that we can have that we don't have control of, and so I would encourage you to consult with them a little bit. You don't have to take their advice, but just to give them advice of what's going on. And then thirdly, as a new county commissioner, I've had a bunch of industry professionals. I actually come out of the land use and architecture industry. And I've had a few professionals in the industry ask me to look for some areas or ways to update the SLDC. And so as you are the most experts of seeing issues that come before you, that whether it's a conflict in the code, that somebody has an intention versus what is actually written in the code, and that maybe come as variances all the time. These common variances that you see maybe have a place where you have some recommendations either to pass on to staff for updates to the SLDC. I'm open to encouraging the changes to the SLDC in a way that make the code more easily enforceable and more consistent to the intention. So thank you very much. I look forward to working with all of you and seeing all of your recommendations passed on. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer a question or two, but my name is Justin Green. Nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I do have for your item number 1. I guess I would like to ask you back. Have you heard anything back? Have we heard anything back from the city on that Lua or Luke?
I don't know on their appointments to the board.
Correct. I heard that we haven't heard back. Last time I talked to Commissioner Hanson, we hadn't heard back from the city yet.
Yeah, so that is one of that board, or if you remember the old RPA, we did some research on trying to see what the status of that Joint Powers Board was. And it appears that it has never been abandoned, and that I'm also encouraging the county to put forward its members and to encourage the city to have a collaborative board to work between the lines on that as well. So I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll be happy to get it to you in the next, I'm sure somebody at the county knows that, and we'll go bug the city, poke the bear.
Well, Commissioner, thank you for the pleasant surprise.
Yeah, thank you, guys. It was an interesting conversation tonight, so good luck, guys. Thank you.
Take care. Okay, communication from the commission members.
Yeah, I will be out of town for the next meeting.
Okay,
March.
thank you for the notice.
And also, what he was saying, wasn't there, they were going to put together a committee, wasn't it called extraterrestrial?
Yeah, it used to be called the Easy A and the
Yeah.
Easy C. Now it's called the Alua and the Aluk.
Oh, okay, so same thing. I kind of like the other one better.
So did I.
That's true, and actually, I think volunteers were solicited several months ago. I remember volunteering to it, so we we all did.
All of us volunteered to be on it. We'll see who got picked.
Mr. Chairman, two comments. One, I guess there was some mix-up about getting out the information for this meeting in the mail. We got the notice of the meeting, the agenda, but we didn't get the documentation for this meeting until I think it was like yesterday. So if staff could please clear that up so that we get the documentation with the agenda for the upcoming meetings. And secondly, the previous meeting, that was very odd because that meeting location and time was changed. And the only thing, as a commissioner, I got one phone message saying, "We're changing this, can you attend?" And the message was such that I didn't have a number to call back at or anything, and I was not able to attend that meeting. I would have liked to attended that meeting, given what was discussed. So if we're going to have a change of meeting time or date, I think there needs to be a more, what's the word I'm looking for here? A structured way of doing that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I wonder, one of the things that since the last meeting, at the top of the county webpage, there is now a link, the very top bar, there's now a link that says View Packet Material. And so a week before this thing is scheduled to start, you click that link, it'll take you to Board Docs, you select Planning Commission, and you can see the stuff. So you don't really need a link driven in. You can get there from the homepage of the county website. It's just, they've made it significantly more convenient than a couple months ago, so.
I agree. I found that last week too as well. I agree.
Right.
Okay. Communications from the attorney.
I don't believe I have anything for the commissioners tonight.
Thank you. Matters from land use staff. Jose, anything new?
Mr. Chair, yes, I'd like to introduce our new manager from the Building Development Services. This is Jeremy Meir. He's been with us 2.5 weeks, almost 3 weeks. So, yeah,
Welcome aboard.
that's
And
all
so
we.
he's your boss, or you're his boss, or?
He's my boss.
Got it. And Jeremy, what was your last name? M-I-E-R. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Okay. Our next regularly scheduled planning commission meeting is March 16th, 2023. And can I get a motion for adjournment? We're adjourned. Oh, I should say all in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. All opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.